Space, the final frontier. This is a review show for Star Trek The Next Generation. Its continuing mission to explore interesting plot points, to seek out goofs and continuity errors, to boldly go where no other TNG review show has gone before. It's Wednesday. It's 8 o'clock. It's the TNG review show. Good evening, everyone. It's us. We're back with another episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. We're consigning it to the vaults with myself, Monteman, my co-hosts, Mazim Bob, Tavykins, and Chief Sean. Good evening, everyone. Oh my God, look at that. That's hideous. Look at all those versions of us going off into the distance.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
It's a friggin' nightmare.
Enough of that.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry.
You're on a relevant bridge for this evening's
Very much so.
show. I will start off by saying we've got a slight problem with Tavykins' reception, in that she's subspace communications is down, and she's in a slightly different time zone to everyone else. So when I say good evening to Tavykins in a minute, we're probably going to have to wait a little while whilst it engages and she joins the conversation. But we'll see how it goes. She basically has internet problems.
Might try and join on her phone later if she thinks
Yeah. She'll be in chat. Anyway, good evening, everyone. And I'll start off with saying good evening to Mazim and Bob. How are you this week?
Howdy, hi. I'm good, thank you. I'm rocking the wet hair look just because I only stepped out of the shower 5 minutes ago. But yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Busy week work-wise, but other than that, no change.
Yeah. Tavykins, how are you this evening, my love? Just give it a few beats.
I'm doing well. That's good.
Hey. Good. Are you still in Canada?
Gone into Narnia there.
Oh, she's on her phone.
Hey.
Yeah. Can you hear me live now?
Yes.
Yes.
That's much better.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Ruth says
doing
I'm
good.
echoey. I don't know what to do about that.
It's echoey?
I'm echoey, apparently.
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm still in Canada. So vacation.
Nice.
My useless
Nice.
green screen because
Yeah.
I can't put up my engineering background. But otherwise I'm good.
It's working. It's working, and that's the important thing. That's the important thing. Good evening, Chief Sean. How are you this evening?
Evening. I'm alright, thank you. Just back from Dublin, so I was up at 5:30. So if I start to lag a bit in about an hour and a half, forgive me. I've been awake a very long time. But,
Maz is
I'm filling myself full of. I'm pumping myself full of sugar, so hopefully it'll make it through.
What's that, beer? Oh, cider.
West Country cider. Yeah, well, we call it Bulmers here, but it's Magners.
Magnus.
Italian wine.
Nice.
We say what? Farnelli, Vino Rosso.
I have what's left of some orange juice. It's not very exciting. It's not. I once again have no wine in the house. It's not a good. It's not a good look. I'm well. I've been.
People in chat are saying we're all echoey. Ruth and
Oh,
Stu
are we?
Clem are both saying.
Oh, well, everyone's echoey.
Apparently so. Ruth says you're all a bit echoey actually, and Stu Clem says yeah, Ruth, all.
Oh, we're getting
Except for Monty.
feedback.
Except for
We're getting feedback.
have I got it too loud? Maybe.
Have someone got two devices on the same room? Maybe a little bit of echo coming
No.
off your phone into your mic, or I don't have any mic, so I just have to put earphones in. Can't be me.
I think
You can do process of elimination, mute one by one, and see does it keep happening. So I'll mute. People tell me if it keeps happening.
I don't know. I mean, yeah.
I'd have to talk for them to say that, right?
I mean, your guys' mics are slightly echoey next to my mic anyway. There's not a lot I can do about that. it's just the way it is. The closer you are to the mic, the less echoey it is.
Yeah, I'll put it right under my chin.
The more
Oh.
the more Sean
gonna be
messes
the-
about with his mic, though, the more he breaks his camera.
My camera keeps freezing for some reason. I haven't figured out why. It only just happened before it went live, so I'll have to install some drivers or something. I'll
Let us
figure it
know.
out next week.
Is Sean a little bit better now? Just see, is that improved things? Let us know, Ruth. Good evening to everyone in live chat. Dan from Subspace Chatter. Good evening to you, Ruth, Wookie, Stuplum, Supreme Panko. Oh, do you want to? Panko. Yes. Leave your mic alone, Sean. Leave it alone. Sean, leave it alone. Leave it alone.
I'm tightening it.
Oh.
I'm not
Maybe
adjusting
put
the
yourself
settings,
on
I'm
mute
just
while you're
tightening.
doing it.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Didn't
No,
think you'd pick that up. Okay.
I honestly don't know why. As Stu says, you're all in a big chamber.
Yeah, we're definitely getting a repeat.
I've got
They
nothing
say they
else.
can hear us fine, but you know, I just don't know what you can do to troubleshoot whilst live.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've gone mute and it's still happening, so it's not my.
Turn down my headphones in case there's any feedback.
Very unlikely.
Oh, I know why. Oh, I'm such an idiot.
You have the sound output from the YouTube through your browser, do you?
Hey, hello everyone. Is that a bit better now? Oh.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yes, all sorted. Yes. Now,
Sorry, Ruth.
I had my.
So this will be known as the technical support episode because everything is freezing and breaking.
Yeah, no, it's
very fun.
oh god, it's so embarrassing. I had my speakers on, so my mic was picking up everything from the speakers.
Right.
But of course,
Makes sense.
with my headset on, I didn't hear my speakers.
Because they're in sync, yeah.
Yeah, because they're in
They're
sync.
effectively noise
So,
cancelling, yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering why I was turning it down. It wasn't actually making any difference. I was like, I can still hear them really loudly. That would be the
We're
reason.
sorted now.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Anyway,
Get a good angle on it.
sorry, everyone. One day I'll learn how to do this YouTubing thing, you know. I don't know what this is something like the...
You haven't learned after a couple of years. I think it's just never going to happen at this stage, right?
It's actually...
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
It's actually 3 years. You know, the Monty Zone turns 3 years old in August.
And
Subspace says, "Where's Scotty when you need him?" to
I know.
fix your
I know. Crikey.
Brilliant.
just a minor update. Last week we were 13 subscribers off 500. This week we're 12. We're
Hey,
just edging right up there.
we got another subscriber. That's
And
That's
Rookie
good
says, "Monty, sometimes genital piercings can cause feedback on the microphone." Just saying.
oh well. I will bear that one in mind. Yes. Right, I'm going to get straight on with the episode now because I think this is going to be... Relics is going to be quite a long one this evening. So we will go...
Lots of trivia and goods.
A lot of trivia, a lot of things to talk about. So we'll go straight into it. This episode is Relics. It's episode 4 of season 6, production number 40276-230. It first aired in the US on the 12th of October 1992. And was the 129th to be both produced and released. It was written by Ronald D. Moore. This is the 17th of 29 for TNG. And we've talked about him a lot in the past. And it's a directing debut from Alexander Singer. This was the first of 6 episodes he directed for TNG. And directed a similar number of Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Maz?
Yes. So this whole transport loop premise was originally pitched some years earlier, and they've been looking for an opportunity to use it. So, you know, when they realised it might be useful in this episode, they bought the premise. Obviously, you mentioned about Alexander Singer. He's an ardent science fiction fan, so he actually really wanted to work on the original series in the 60s, and it just kind of never really happened. So he said that having Jimmy doing there, he felt like he was in the middle of some kind of mythic experience, which is amazing. And they did originally have some rules around TNG about not harping back to the original series and for the show to get its own identity. So they did have some, early rules not to do that, but after doing unification and realizing that it was okay and they could bring back old characters without losing the identity of the show, it meant that they had a bit more freedom to explore these kinds of ideas. And originally Brannon Braga was slated to write this episode but wanted to write A Fistful of Datas instead. And Ron Moore, who was a huge fan, obviously a huge fan of the original series, got to do this episode and was also allowed to indulge his fondness of the original series further when he co-wrote Trials and Tribulations in Deep Space Nine crossover.
Yes. Because Brannon wasn't a TOS fan at all, was he? I don't think.
No, I think he said something like, I didn't even know who Scotty was.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, what's weird to think is Trials and Tribulations was a 30th anniversary episode, and it itself will be 30 years old in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've just, we have like a 30th anniversary of the 30th episode. I mean, if you remember the episodes, God, the name's gone out of my head, where they go to the sanctuary districts in Deep Space Nine. Sorry, past tense, part 1 and 2.
Past tense, yeah.
That happens like August of next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we're
crazy.
creeping right into that the future, basically. The future of Star Trek, pretty much.
I will say there's a bit of a the pictures are going to be a bit strange this evening from what we've had in the past, so you're just going to have to bear with it. We've run out of Blu-ray screen caps on Trek Core.
Trek Core.
Yeah. The last episode was the last episode that they put the Blu-ray screen caps on. So whoever was doing that left or stopped doing it in 2016, and nobody finished it off. So I did start off just using the normal standard definition ones, but then halfway through this thing I get fed up of using them, and I actually use a completely different website for screen caps. So there's a mixture and match thing going on this evening, so you'll just have to bear with it anyway.
Yeah, there's one or two dodgy shots where they did some really bad upscaling in this episode. They when they were remastering it, they clearly couldn't find all the shots. Particularly the scene where they're on the TOS bridge and they're cutting back and forth, and when you see Picard, it looks god awful, and when you see Scotty, it looks film perfect, 4K perfect. So yeah, we'll come to those.
Yeah.
But then again, since we only have HD screenshots, it'll be a little bit hard to point those out. But nonetheless, we'll persevere.
Well, I think we'll get to the Blu-ray ones when we get to those, because I do swap to another provider. I couldn't be bothered to go back and change them all. So for the moment, it'll be
point.
SD, but there'll be some Blu-ray ones later on. Okay,
All right.
So the teaser then. The Enterprise has picked up a distress signal that Data has determined is from the USS Jenolan, a transport vessel that's been missing for 75 years. They come out of warp and detect a massive gravitational field. What can that be? It's... I just put this one in here. I'm sure Maz is going to mention this later on, but I spotted it. Before they even come out of warp, as they're walking along the bridge here, you can see a diagram of the Dyson sphere in Science 1 at the back. Before they even have discovered the Dyson sphere. So they were filming that for one of the scenes where Data sat at the science station, and then they left it in. But anyway.
Well,
the one I had here was a...
Go on.
Carry on, John.
I was going to say, presumably they film all the bridge scenes in a block, over whatever, a day or 2 days. So they just didn't think of it that they needed to change it. Or it was a pickup shot when they were doing it on the second day and they had to go back and nobody changed it back. These things happen. Yeah. Although you can see Lieutenant J in the background. There's a nice shot of her.
Oh, yeah.
She's in about 120 episodes. There's no lines.
Yeah, I was going to say the issue not issue I had, but there was a continuity error here. So Picard and Riker, they move away from Data to walk down the gangway there. Data stands up behind them, but then when you see it from the front, they're still walking down, and he's already sat at con.
Yes.
Like he was behind them, but he somehow leapfrogs over them and gets seated.
He is quick. Fast. He is quick.
Yeah.
Just ask.
Android speed.
Yeah. I was going to say, just ask Yar, but no. So,
oh my.
Oh my. Yeah. So they discover an orb that's 200 million kilometers in diameter. Riker notes that that's nearly as large as Earth's orbit around the sun. So about, I guess it's 2 AU wide then, or 1 AU wide. Picard thinks it could be a Dyson sphere, as postulated by 20th century physicist Freeman Dyson. So they go into synchronous orbit above the distress signal's location, and they find a ship. It still has minimal life support, and it has power emanations. So Riker takes Worf and Geordi, and they beam down. I got some pictures here of that's the ship crashed on the Jenolan. I think this is a reuse of a shuttle or something they've had in the past.
Yeah, from the motion picture, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. The interior was a reuse too.
Yeah.
I think it was a shuttle, and they just plopped the nacelles on it. It looks like a kit bash. They took them off an Enterprise model. They look exactly the same as the Enterprise refit. So
it looks a little strange because as you get this shot and then you get this sort of more zoomed in shot, it looks like this plate back here must be like separately attached, because here you can see these like two squares are like quite a bit in front of the ship, and these circle bits are almost alongside the back of it, and then when you zoom in, the like two squares are like alongside the ship. So I think they must have they must have took the model apart and reassembled it or something between the two shots.
Very possibly. Also, it's hard not to do this with model making, but your brain can subconsciously pick up on it. All the shadows aren't pointing in the same direction. So if that light was coming from a sun that's a couple of million kilometers together, then it should all be perfectly parallel. Whereas you can see that it's just a lamp straight above the table because they're all diverging. So hard to fix, but it's when you see it, you can't unsee it.
Worf, now they've beamed onto the Jenolan, Worf goes and looks to increase the oxygen levels, and Geordi finds someone's buggered about with the transporter systems so that it draws power from the auxiliary systems and is locked in a level 4 diagnostic loop. And we get a good shot of, like, they do quite a good job at recreating the old L-car screen from, like, the movie era.
Yeah, it's very tidy, but you have to remember this is only, 4 months after the Undiscovered Country, so I wouldn't say recreating. They'd only just made a film with a heap of it. So,
but it says level 4
it was relatively
diagnostic,
easy.
and it was, they put effort into it to make it.
Oh, they did. Well, I know this is the remaster shot, but even the original looks great.
Yeah. Yep. So it still has a pattern in the pattern buffer, and they wonder if someone could have survived all that time in the transporter. So they decide the only way to find out is to energize, and they indeed energize the transporter. I like the way the visuals and the sound effects from the transporter were more like TOS,
And it is the same science lab set they used 4 or 5 episodes ago, but they just changed it from a yellow to more of a blue, which again is closer to the way they redressed the Enterprise sets for Star Trek 6. So yeah, it's a nice callback. I like it.
And on the transporter pad, Captain Montgomery Scott, aka Scotty, materializes on the transporter, his left arm in a makeshift sling made out of uniform cloth. And here he is, fully materialized. And that's the end of the teaser.
Oh, lovely stuff. Okay, so.
Oh, I need my wheel.
Data mentions that 200 million kilometers is about 2/3 of the orbit around the sun, but what is the correct distance? So this is the correct distance for 2/3 of the orbit. Okay, so it's either, this should be in millions, but it's 100 million kilometers, 200 million, 300 million, or 400 million.
Good evening, Mr. Tavians. The beard is in chat.
Mr. T.
Is are you putting the question in chat, Sean?
I did.
Is there a bonus question?
Oh, did you?
Oh, I
must
have.
Oh,
I don't have more messages.
Bonus question, and you may have mentioned it there, Monty. What is the common name for the distance from the Earth to the Sun? So it's a unit of measurement. So what?
Yeah,
what
I can only
unit
see
is
one of
it?
the questions, even though I've now selected all messages.
Yeah, I can't see either.
Oh, I thought I put it in. It might have been too big. Hold on 2 seconds. I had
That's
the data
what she
problem.
said.
Okay, I put it in again. Sorry about that. I
I thought
okay,
I
yeah.
put it in, but it might have been too big. Brilliant.
Alright.
Anyway, I will
I just
go on with
answered
my
us-
many bits of trivia and stuff. So we
Yeah,
pointed out one of the continuity errors right at the beginning, but another one was that as Riker and Picard were stood on Data's shoulder, they were supposed to be at warp, but you can just see a picture of, the little skylight thing that they've got at the top of the bridge, and it had a very sort of static star screen, so it obviously shouldn't have been if they were at warp. And some of the naming in this, so there's an ensign on the bridge. I don't know if you've got any questions about the ensign name or anything, Sean. But Ronald D. Moore went to a holodection convention in Sydney, and apparently Ron's dancing labelled him as a rager, and they went to the Jenolan caves. So the ship obviously got named after the caves. And then they had Ensign Rager, which they got from him being called a rager. So some inspiration that he took for names there.
Is a rager like a flamer? Is that like saying he was
It's
dancing
like
a bit
he's
gay?
a wild party goer.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, Aussie
He's a
slang.
rager. Oh, he's
Right.
a rager on
Okay,
the
I'm with you
dance
now. Okay.
floor. So another one is, so they were on the way, they were on en route somewhere. I mean, they're just sort of going through Federation space,
Yeah,
and
they're going
something
to a
like a Dyson
retirement
sphere
home.
is going to be absolutely massive. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they're going to a retirement home, basically. Yeah, a nursing home.
Yeah, and a Dyson sphere is going to be absolutely massive. So massive that you'd think, you know, anybody would be able to see it with a good telescope within a long sort of, you know, way around it. But yeah, apparently, like, nobody knew it was there. It just seems a little bit unbelievable. And apparently the idea of a Dyson sphere was going around for a while. They were just trying to find a good episode to put it in. And the what's he called? The Shankar, the tech guy, was giving them, you know, the writing staff, the dimensions and things, and they were a bit like, it's how big? So yeah, pretty cool. I think data says it's the same surface area of 250 class M planets or something.
No,
which
he
was a
says
bit,
something like 10 to the 14th power, which means if you, this isn't accurate, but let's say if every grain of sand and every beach on Earth was an Earth, that's kind of how much space it was. It's a really big number.
well, he makes reference to the size and M-class planets, but obviously M-class is a type of planet, not really a size. I guess he was meaning like 250 million Earth-type planets.
Yeah,
which is
roughly
fine.
roughly Earth, yeah.
What else? The Genolan, you mentioned the model was created by Bill George and John Goodson at ILM.
I think it was the original. It was what was going to be like a runabout, like it was where the runabout was based on. They were going to reuse that model originally, but
Was it?
But they didn't in the end.
Yeah, some of the designs are similar. Yeah, you can see that design.
It was going to be a SD-103 type shuttle in Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country.
Oh yeah, like around the space Earth space dock.
Yeah, that's what Genolan is. It just stuck cells on it.
That's right.
And apparently on the model itself, they did misspell Genolan, and you can see that in the remastered version. But I mean, I was, you know, trying to see. I couldn't see it. You can see the registry number, but I can't actually see the ship name. And then some final comments about the transporter effect. So you're right, they did use the previous effects because Dan Curry, who was also a huge original series fan, used to work at Cinema Research. He used to do these effects and stuff, and he remembered that there was a box somewhere in their stock footage storage room labeled transporter sparkle. So he dusted it off and pulled it out, and it was in perfect condition. And there was another person who co-produced, Wendy Noyce, I think, Noyce, who found the sound in the archive footage, or the studio's sort of you know, sound archives. I mean, some people say, well, it was a bit out of date because the Genolan was actually a long time after when the original series, you know, was like. I think the sound of it changes throughout the films and stuff, but it's still, it's quite nice. Yeah. It gave people a sense of the fact that they're about to see somebody from, you know, from the old series, which was really cool.
It's not uncommon that military, you know, particularly naval stuff, would be 20 or 30 years ahead what the civilians would have, you know. So I mean, you can justify that their tech is a little bit behind, you know, the top of the range, even if it was a new ship, you know, for that reason, or it's decommissioned from naval use and just being used as a transport. It's very possible.
So
that's about it for now.
Figure. Can you just repeat the first question, because I didn't hear what it was.
Okay, so the distance, they said 2/3 of the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Was it 100 million kilometers, 200, 300, or 400? Now 2/3. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so who got things right then? Oh, someone just ran a tap.
someone flushed the toilet or something.
Or flushed the toilet, or just really, really needed to go.
All right. Okay, there's enough time for the questions. Monty,
We appear to be covered in seas.
Yeah. No, I have. It's 150 kilometers is an astronomical unit, so 2/3 of it would be 100 kilometers. I double check that because I've got a different answer. AU distance. 1 second. In km. Sorry.
I just heard you say that they said it was
Yeah.
200, and they said it was 2/3.
Yeah,
so what is the actual?
so it's
I was
it's
just doing the
2/3 of
math.
150. It's 2/3 of 150, which is 100. So, yeah, the answer was A on that, and it was an astronomical unit or AU.
AU.
And also, I think a sector is is a sector 1 AU or is it 10 AUs cubed? I can't remember now, but they define it is used in Star Trek.
I don't think anybody understood the question.
No, I still didn't when you repeated it, but
but the thing is, he said, sorry, the reason why I put that question is, he said it's 200 kilometers, which is 2/3 of an AU, which means an AU is 300 kilometers, but in fact an AU is 150 kilometers. So that's why I put it in, because I noticed an error that isn't even in the error sheets for this episode. They just
all we did was did the math.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it was 100. Sorry about that, guys.
Right. I think
y'all wash your face. Nobody won, nobody lost. You're all on even pegging.
There we go. Did I miss anyone out there? Subspace, Maz, Monty, Tavi, Ruth. I think that's everyone, isn't it? Let's spin the wheel.
Yeah.
And the bonus points goes to Mazza. Well done, Mazza. Well done.
Well, I'm in the lead then at the moment because
You're in the lead.
nobody else has any points.
That's one.
Ruth still doesn't have the look of that wheel.
No, Ruth, it's the wheel doesn't like you, Ruth. I don't know why. Okay, Act 1. Scotty sets about trying to get Matt Franklin out of the transporter, whose pattern is also in the buffers, but unfortunately the phasing juices that were keeping his pattern intact have failed and he's lost. Riker tells Scotty that they've come on the Enterprise, and Scotty, who's a bit confused to being let out of the transporter, bets that Jim Kirk himself brought the old girl out of mothballs to come save him. But of course, as Chief Sean has said on a number of occasions, that now is continuity breaking.
He's dead, Dave.
Yes.
He's dead, Dave.
Well, what's...
Yeah,
Red Dwarf
again.
Yeah. What makes it even worse is they were already writing the script for Generations when this episode was being done, so it was even dumber that they did that.
Well, there's even a stupider thing in Generations where the two, I think it's Scotty and it's Chekhov, and Chekhov basically says, "Oh, I'll take over sickbay. You and your nurses come with me," because the lines were actually written for McCoy, and then McCoy wouldn't do it for the money, and Chekhov did it. And they didn't change any of the lines, so he would play the doctor even though that wasn't his role.
That's right.
Yeah, it's very stupid.
Yeah.
And Tim Russ doesn't have Vulcan ears. That's another problem. Again.
Again, reverse continuity.
Starship Mine, he also doesn't have Vulcan ears.
Anyway, so Worf enters and reports that life support has been restored, and the sudden appearance of a Klingon shocks Scotty, and the fact that this Klingon's a lieutenant. Riker tells him that there's some things that they have to discuss, and Scotty's like, "No kidding." Back on the D, Riker wants Scotty to go to sickbay, but first he has a lot of questions about the changes to the transporter, and Geordi agrees to answer all his questions. This is the first time I noticed they sort of covered over the isolinear chips on the... they did that a few episodes ago. I went back and checked, and they did it. They did it a few episodes ago, but it's the first time I noticed.
Well, just as well they did, because he just takes off the cover and he nearly electrocutes himself.
That's right.
It's not locked or anything. It's not locked or anything. You can just open up and just put your finger in, and
You'd think even Scotty, even with his confused state, would have known to not stick his finger in the
honeypot. Yeah, we know.
Anyway, they exit the transport room and head to sickbay. where Scotty describes how he was on his way to the Norpin colony, which I imagine is like the Federation's version of Florida. When the plasma transfer conduit overloaded and the captain brought them out of warp, and there it was, as big as life, a Dyson's sphere. They got caught in the gravity well and down she went, with just Scotty and Franklin surviving. Geordi asks what made him think of using the transporters, as it was absolutely brilliant, but Scotty thinks it was only 50% brilliant because Franklin didn't survive.
Do you know there's Dyson the Hoover? They created one that has a big ball in it rather than having traditional wheels.
Called a Dyson sphere.
And they called it a ball animal. They just missed. They called it,
I thought it was called a. Wasn't it?
No,
called
they didn't.
Was it called a ball? I thought they called it a sphere.
Yeah, it was called a Dyson ball. They didn't call it a Dyson sphere, and I just.
I missed a trick, didn't they? They missed a trick.
This episode, I'm going to be nagging on a bit later because it's complete assassination of Geordi's character. Because he's quite empathic, he even deals with, like, you know, Data as his friend and whatnot, and very social guy. And in this scene, after he tells him that the other guy died, Geordi's like, well, let's get on going then. Let's get you taken care of, sir. And I was like, dude, just told you about the other crew member dying, and you're like, next. Not even a moment of just like visual, oh, I'm really sorry. Yeah, that did happen. But you know,
this is a 45-minute episode and we've got to carry on.
Yeah.
They get to sick bay and the doc takes a good look at his arm and tells him he has a hairline fracture of the humerus, if you find that funny, and it'll just ache for a couple of days. Scotty thinks that the doctors on this Enterprise are a fair sight prettier. Picard enters and greets Scotty. He is surprised that they found him, as he wasn't listed as a member of the Genolan crew, and Scotty admits that he wasn't a member of the crew, he was just a passenger on his way to the Norpin colony. Picard tells Geordi to analyse the Dyson sphere, so Geordi takes his leave and is telling Scotty that he's off to engineering. Scotty packs up and is like, engineering? I thought you'd never ask. But the doc steps in and tells Scotty he has to rest. Scotty's escorted to his quarters by an ensign. I don't know, but I feel I've seen this ensign before.
Yeah, same.
Like, it's one of those instances where I'm not sure if I recognized him because I've seen this episode so many times, or whether
Mark Zuckerberg's father.
he does look a bit like Mark Zuckerberg, doesn't he? Yeah. But anyway, this ensign here, he escorts Scotty to his quarters, and Scotty's all struck by the luxury that he's entitled to compared to starships of his time. Even an admiral wouldn't have such quarters. Scotty starts to reminisce about his years in Starfleet, starting explaining with the mission to with the Elas of Doman, which was quoting basically Elan of Troyes, which was season 3, episode 2. Which
okay,
is
so just for the actor Eric Weiss, he was
Weiss,
in Conundrum. And
right.
he as a crewman apparently, and he also plays Stefan in the Deep Space Nine episode Paradise. So if you remember, they kind of crash land on a planet and the technology doesn't work, and the woman in charge of it all has a son. He plays the son.
Right. Oh yes, like aliens.
The son. The
son.
Big butch, dark-haired, muscle-bound son.
Oh, maybe he played someone else, but he was in
Not
that episode.
That guy. He didn't play that guy. That wasn't him.
I was going to say. I mean, maybe he bulked up a bit, but I remember that guy being.
Stefan. Hold on, what is it?
Oh, maybe he was the one that they locked up in the crate.
Oh yeah, he was. That's exactly who he was. Yeah, they locked him up for stealing a candle.
Yeah, that would be the one.
So Space Chat has pointed out that the modern Trek kind of like ruined this scene because Captain Pike's quarters, who's a captain like on the Enterprise in before Scotty's time.
Oh yeah,
is like his quarters are
bigger than
absolutely
the house.
ginormous.
It's like a suite. Yeah.
It's got an open roaring fire and a full
I mean, that's
kitchen.
like a 10 grand a
Massive
night hotel
kitchen.
room. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I keep thinking they're on a space station or something, and then I'm like, oh no, they're on the Enterprise. Okay. It's bigger than 10 forward. It's like humongous.
yeah, it's stupidly big.
But yeah, no,
I
I like Strange New Worlds, but they could have been a quarter of the size and it would have made a lot more sense.
So Wookie's posed a question of how old is Scotty supposed to be in this episode? So we can calculate by the fact that
see you later,
Crusher
Dan.
says
Cheers.
he's doing well for a 147-year-old, but he's been in stasis for what, 75 years?
Yeah.
So that would have made him 72. And actually that was his actual age at the time of filming as well, which would have also meant that Scotty was born in the year 2222.
Oh. Shame they didn't make him
And it's a 47
74.
reference.
Oh, that was it. What, 20? How's it 47 reference? Oh,
'Cause he's
147.
Well, they said he was 147.
Yeah. Sorry, yes. Ruth pointed that out.
Ah,
Yeah.
147.
Snooker break.
Oh, see you later, Subspace. Nice to see you.
Yeah, so
Find yourself.
I only know that was he referenced when he talked about the elastomen in transporting her. I just remember Alan of Troyes. I'll always, as a little boy, liked that episode because she was hot. She was hot. It's the episode. It's the episode that
Lasting impression.
well, it's the episode the Perfect Mate was based on, because they take on like this queen like who's got to marry this like Andorian, I think he is, and he's just a right like horrible piece of work, but just to save it's like as a to stop the hostilities between the two people, and she's got a special power where she can entrap men, and obviously Kirk falls in love with her and they have an affair, but she's got to do her duty and go off at the end of it, isn't it? So it's very much like the Perfect Mate in TOS. So then he goes on to talk about his troubles during shore leave at Argelius 2. He was like, where I ran into a bit of trouble. Well, that trouble was he was accused of murdering 2 women. So he was put on trial for murder because it turned out he was possessed by an alien entity that was actually Jack the Ripper. That was,
Yes, I remember that one now.
Wolf in the Fold, season 2, episode 7. But the ensign here has very little interest in Scotty's nostalgia. And
Sorry, that's such a cheesy episode. It's like that. Yeah, that. Plus, you go to one of those murder dinners, like all the lights go off, and then there's a dagger in someone's back, and they go ah! It's so cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah, Kane's not interested in hearing Scotty's stories and politely tells him he's got to return to his duties, leaving Scotty alone in his quarters, feeling much less enthusiastic and somewhat pensive about his new life in the 24th century. And that's the end of Act 1.
I would have to say again, this episode kind of irked me out in a military point of view, because even though he's like he's retired at this point, if you're coming back on a ship like that, it is a bit like having a distinguished guest. So when we were at the base hotel, at no point in time would you have Jack Nobody Ensign escort somebody like Scotty to his room and then blow him off because he's got to get back to work. You would sit there just like happily. Everything he says would be like, really? It's like just smile and not, as opposed to this dude being like, yeah, well, I got shit to do for a clock out, so. And then they don't even send Scotty to Troy. So Troy, he should have been in Troy's freaking like a guidance room immediately after to debrief him from being in a time, I guess, a chasm of time hop.
I would imagine you'd need some sort of counseling for being ripped out of time. You get a some sort of foreign land syndrome or something. Apparently people come from Japan, go to Paris on holidays, and they get this it's called power syndrome. They basically have mental breakdowns because the culture is so different from what they expect that some of them just actually have mental breakdowns over it, and they have to have special counseling services at the embassy over it. I mean, you're dragged 75 years into the future. 75 years ago, the right plane was taking off. We didn't have engines, we didn't have internet, we didn't have telephones. Basically,
No.
electricity was only in cities. I mean, you just think about how far we've come. And then you just dump them in there, and you go, yeah, that's fine. Get on with it now.
Yeah.
Good luck.
That would also be an instant to give him a tour of the new ship, which is also crazy to me because he wouldn't be left alone in his room. There would actually be someone assigned to escort him the entire time if he just wanted to, just look around or whatever. But it's like, damn, thanks for being here. Here's your fucking room. Bye.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's all he got.
Not a tour, not a captain's inspection, particularly not engineering. It's just like, no, we're good.
Yeah. He is injured, but you would think someone would sit with him. He's an old man, as you say. Yeah.
You'd think someone would just sit with him in 10 forward and get him tanked and just, ease him over for a bit. There must be one Scottish person on the ship that can just, talk about how Partick Thistle are getting on the soccer or something.
They will sort him out later.
Yeah.
We need more.
Read out the
finally
questions,
some
Sean.
data. Jesus.
Not quite, no. Oh, sorry, I put the question in the chat. I didn't say them out loud because the conversation moved on.
Okay.
How
Well,
much-
I'll
how
carry
much
on
did
doing my
Franklin's-
trivia then, if you like.
I'll just read them out quickly. How much did Franklin's pattern degrade? A, 47, B, 53, C, 59, or D, 65%? And the bonus question, in what Star Trek film do we see the USS Franklin?
Cool. So when you guys were mentioning Generations earlier, was that in reference to the fact that he seemed to think Kirk was alive when he wasn't?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you just saw
'cause
him
they
die.
were
So there were a number
writing
of-
the script. Yeah.
Yeah, so there were a number of sort of explanations given or whatever. They said, maybe because he was in stasis for 75 minutes, he was 75 years, he was a bit disoriented. And there's a Star Trek novel, Generations, where Guinan tells Chekhov that Kirk is in fact alive within the Nexus ribbon. There's various bits and bobs of how that's explained, but they sort of recognise that it was a bit of a continuity issue. So as at the beginning of this act, as LaForge and Scotty are walking down the corridor, for a start, if he's got a fracture in his humerus, which we know how painful fractures can be, don't we, Monty?
It's definitely not humorous.
And LaForge is talking to him and kind of keeps bumping into his fractured arm, and Scotty doesn't seem bothered by it at all. And also, they were on their way to sickbay, and they got in the turbo lift. And guess what floor they were on when they got in the turbo lift?
8, 10.
No, 12, which is where sickbay is. So they
Oh.
were going to sickbay, but getting in a turbo lift on the deck that sickbay was on. As I was reading up on this, just out of interest, I found that there are actually. Do you know how many sickbays there are in the Enterprise?
At least 3, I think. Probably 6 or 8.
There is a
3.
number.
Yeah, there's 3. There's 2 on deck 12, and then 1 in the engineering hull in case of where saucers up and stuff like that. A secondary sick bay that they can set up down there.
I imagine they also
what
have
else?
triage facilities. They can just turn a cargo bay into kind of a makeshift sick bay at will, because the ship is designed to evacuate colonies. It can hold 12,000 people in an emergency. So I imagine they can do a bit more if they need to.
Oh, it's Star Trek Beyond. God damn it.
Is Trek Beyond that's Star Trek 3 if you're going by the Kelvin. That's the 3rd Kelvin film. So 4 doesn't cover it, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah, it was the ship.
I was thinking
where they're playing sabotage.
I was thinking of the Saratoga.
No, it's the the one with the black captain. No, it's the Miranda class. No, it's the Enterprise pre-Enterprise era ship, the Franklin.
Yeah.
Even though we never see it in Enterprise, when they go, it'd always be great if we had another ship, but they are the only one. Apparently, there was one 10 years before. Just everyone forgot about it.
Yeah.
So earlier, Monty, you mentioned about the Dyson sphere being originally postulated by the mathematician Freeman Dyson. And he was actually asked in an interview whether he was aware that Star Trek had used his theory. And he said he wasn't at the time, but his daughter brought his attention to it and sent him a taped copy. He said the episode was fun to watch, and even though it was all nonsense, it was quite a good piece of cinema. So that's kind of cool.
He only died a few years ago.
A few years ago. Oh, gosh.
Oh, Dyson, yeah, he only died in 2020, yeah. It was 90 odd, yeah.
I think we were talking about this before the show, but I don't think we've mentioned it since we've been on air. But James Doohan is the fourth Star Trek original cast actor to appear as the same character in TNG. DeForest Kelley appearing as Bones in Encounter at Farpoint, Mark Leonard as Sarek in Sarek, and Leonard Nimoy in Unification 1 and 2. So yeah, and originally apparently Doohan criticised TNG for being a rehash of original series episodes, which to be fair in the first series it was, but his family actually sat him down and made him watch all of the TNG stuff, and he came to really love it. And once he got past the first season, which obviously had much stronger hand of Gene Roddenberry and things behind it. So
well, there was two elements of that. One was they had all those scripts left over from Star Trek Phase 2 that they'd already paid for, that they needed to use up. And second, during Season 2, there was a writer's strike. So particularly more in Season 2 than Season 1, they just had to use these scripts because they couldn't pay anyone to write a script, and they already had ones that were written. So they could just make the minorest amount of changes. I mean, Decker and Ilya are Riker and Deanna. They just transposed the story. They just changed the names on the scripts, and they all just got carried on. That's pretty much the way they did it.
Yeah. Good evening, Mohammed. Thanks for coming and joining us, sir. I hope you're well.
Evening, Mo.
Okay, so answers then. For those that ask, I've got 0 points because I can always tell it's B.
No point.
So C was a
Franklin
wrong
degraded
guess.
by 53%.
Yeah.
And
which is an inverse 47 reference.
Inverse 47. Should have thought of that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. And so for once it wasn't 47. And then the film was Star Trek Beyond. As I said, it was the one when they're playing sabotage, blowing up all the swarm ships. That's the ship, the Franklin.
Oh, I did get it right.
Yeah, you did. As soon as I saw you put that in chat, I was like, oh, damn it, that's correct. I was thinking of the Saratoga.
When I saw that you put Star Trek 4 in, and I'm like, shit, this is one of the older ones I haven't seen. I was like, but they referenced it in the other one, so maybe I'll get extra points for that.
There's only one ship in Star Trek 4, as it happens. It's the HMS Bounty.
Oh, okay.
No, the Saratoga
is
a
lucky bonus.
The USS Saratoga.
Oh, the Saratoga. Sorry, you're right. The Saratoga, yeah.
And the
first female black captain in Star Trek. Not Burnham, the people keep saying, even the Trek press people keep saying it's Burnham. It wasn't her, it was your one in Saratoga. I forget her name. She went on to play Geordie's mother in TNG.
Yeah, she did. And Star Trek Beyond is the only Star Trek film I've only seen once. So
it has its moments. Yeah, I don't know actually if I've seen it more than once. I think I saw it in the cinema. I probably saw it twice, but that's it.
So I think Tavi's the only person that got that right. So there's no spin of the wheel on that one.
Oh, so
no spin of the wheel.
Tavi takes the points.
My gosh, Mohammed's in Malaysia and it's 3:54 a.m. My God.
Fair play to you for tuning in at that hour of the morning.
Thanks for joining us.
Although,
I
don't know if anyone else gets bouts of anxiety and wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes, but sometimes you see some great streams that you're usually on the wrong time zone. It's like, oh, I'll watch this for 2 hours before I fall asleep again. Kevin Smith is on. Or Trek Yards or something else I watch. I'm like, oh, it's nice to catch these live.
Yeah. We were in Canada a moment with Dan, so we covered Canada, Scotland, Ireland.
With Dan, you mean with Tavi?
I mean Scotland with. We were in Scotland with Dan.
Scotland. Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, Act 2. On to Act 2. So we head to engineering, where Geordie's working on his spectral analysis, and as you can see here now, I've gone to a different screen cap provider, so to get some better images. So.
Yeah, pretty
it's
good.
got a white border, but, never mind. It'll be fine. In engineering, Geordie's working on spectral analysis when Scotty enters to help. Geordie tells him it's a very kind offer, but I think they've got it covered. Scotty reminds him that he's been a Starfleet officer for 52 years. He still can be helpful. So, in the end, Geordie agrees. Back on the bridge.
So he must be.
Go on.
I was just going to say, he must be counting it. If he's 72, 52 years, then came out of the academy at 20, which means he went in at 16, unless he's counting his time in the academy. So, yeah, I suppose you can go in at 16, but you generally, it's like college. You kind of come out 22, 23. So, yeah, bit odd.
And he said he's been on 11 different ships, freighters, and all sorts. So maybe he was doing some things before he went to the academy. And
well, he was only ever chief engineer on Enterprise, so I mean, you had to have other roles before that. You don't start as a chief.
Well, you do. In Star Trek, the remake.
Yeah,
he was in like a
starts
science
a captain.
outpost. He was like in a science outpost, wasn't he, with that weird alien guy, and suddenly transports onto the Enterprise and just becomes.
If you've ever done Star Trek 09, or sorry, Star Trek Online, not Star Trek 09.
Yeah, he did.
The first mission, everyone dies on the bridge, and you just take control, and they go, "Oh, you're really good at that. You can be captain," and they just give him a ship, and that's the first 10 minutes of the game, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Control
shit. Yeah. So
I got another.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, sorry.
Another military injection. At no freaking point in time, regardless of whether you're retired or not, do you show up on an active duty ship and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm in your engineering room. Can I work with you guys?" And I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
I know.
It's like,
Well, that is kind of what Geordie ends up saying, right?
yeah, it's like, I mean, but he would know that. He would know you don't just walk into someone else's. That's like an actual post. Even though they say they're not military, you are not accountable for that workspace. And your where he is in command is not there. No one asked him to be there. What if he doesn't have security clearance anymore? You have no idea what they're doing in there.
Yeah,
just
well, he
freaking
wouldn't,
show up.
because everything he knows is out of date. But also, he like opens up and looks at the crystals. I mean, you don't just like. I mean, imagine like a nuclear reactor on a sub, and you just go open it up and start poking around.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're not rated on that vessel, and you go, "I'll just open it up and have a look." It's like, no.
It's like,
Get shot for that.
To me, I just don't understand like why he expected to be treated well, or like this, like I don't know, like he was showing up at his best friend's house and they're looking at an old vintage vehicle they're tinkering with. It's like, no.
Yeah.
He would know that as a captain.
Yeah.
Maybe in his day it was so infamous that he was used to being treated like a celebrity.
I guess so.
Maybe.
That's
Maybe
I mean,
so.
he jumped on the Bounty, he jumped on the Excelsior, he just went into engine rooms and started playing with things. That was his way.
It's his way.
He should have asked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Data, finally. Keep it on the screen. I was actually making my comment just to make sure you stay on this photo a little bit longer. It's modus.
Right. It's good. It worked. It worked. Even Supreme's been moved to comment.
Ooh la la.
It's delicious. Delicious.
So we are on the bridge with Data, and he's found that the sphere contains a G-type star, and the environment
G-star,
a G-star. Yeah, they found a G-star in the Dyson sphere, and the environment on the inside of the sphere is comparable to an M-class planet. Picard orders them some more probes to be launched to speed up the scans of the sphere. Bye-bye, Data.
No.
Back in engineering, Scotty's making a nuisance of himself, pointing out things that he thinks are wrong, but it's only because the times have moved on. He then starts to reminisce about the time where Kirk asked him to perform a cold start of the Enterprise engines as it was spiraling towards Psi 2000. That was The Naked Time, season 1, episode
But whose
6.
idea was that actually?
What, in The Naked Time?
Yeah, he says he came up with the idea, but it was actually Spock who devised the idea for the cold start engine.
Yes, yes, because Scotty was...
Claiming glory for other people's work. Naughty, naughty.
I will say my father is, well, actually, even when he was younger, but my father is a few years older than him. He's 77. And if you say something to him, I'll go out and I'll trim that tree in the morning. You come back to him the next day, he goes, will you go out and trim that tree? You know, I'll say it'll somewhat register in his brain, but then he'll regurgitating thinking it was his idea. It just it's Jerry. It just as he gets older, just his forgetfulness kind of comes in and out a little bit. He gets a bit, doty, as they say. So it's just in his dotage.
Yeah. The Naked Time obviously is the episode that inspired the Naked Now. Second episode of TNG.
Data.
But
fully functioning data, man.
With fully functioning data.
His first time with a lady.
Yeah. They didn't wait around.
I was just saying what. Second one.
First main episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it's Data's first time, and I think it's probably his last time in Star Trek: The Next Generation as well.
Yeah,
he got it over and done with quick in the show, didn't he? But
I'm just I said this before you came on air, Tabby. The guy who did I Kissed the Borg, I pitched him an idea for a Pretty Fly for an AI, and he said he's probably going to make it. So we've got. All the girls
really
for an AI. Popped into my head last night. Hit it. I'm doing Twitter. It's like, can I have that idea? I was like, yeah. It's like, I'll credit you. I was like, just make it. It's fine. If you make it,
telling me.
Enough.
We would love to see it on a show. Sorry, Monty. I know that's you who decides that, but.
Yeah, if he makes it, we will play it.
I'll personally ask him for permission to play it in its fullness.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be very cool. Yes. So yes, Sky says you can't change the laws of physics, he told him, but he came up with the whole new startup routine that actually Spock did. Scotty then wanders off around engineering, and he's like, do you know your dilithium crystals are about to fracture? But it's Geordi points out that they now recomposite the crystals whilst it's still inside the articulated frame. Geordie's quite short with him now because he's pissed off. I've been interrupted because he's trying to get his analysis done. But like any doddering old man, he doesn't take the hint, and so offers some more advice. Can I give you some advice, laddie? Captains are like children. They always want everything right away. So the trick is not to give them what they want, but what they need. Geordie's like, well, I said I'd get this analysis done in an hour. And Scotty's like, but how long will it really take you? Geordie goes, an hour. I said it would take an hour. It's going to take an hour. Scotty's exasperated, saying, you didn't tell him how long it would really take you, did you? How will you ever get the reputation as a miracle worker?
I'm loving the impression, Monty. Hello.
So my Smiler's just come home.
Hello, Smiler Rainbow.
Hello, Smiler. So everyone
Hi,
say
Smiler.
hello, Smiler Rainbow.
Hello.
Hello, Smiler Rainbow.
I have my car
Evening.
back too.
And you've got your car back from
And
the
I'm
MOT.
sorry I rang you earlier because I didn't know the time.
That's okay.
Did you bring wine,
I'll
Spanner?
jump on in a minute.
No,
Did you bring wine?
No, no wine. No wine.
I know.
Oh.
No.
Terrible. Sorry.
It's all right. I've got my juice. It's all good.
She's the most precious person I think I've ever met, even if it's just digitally.
Yeah. Okay, so Geordie tells him he has a job to do, and quite frankly, Scotty is in the way. So Scotty ends up leaving him to it, telling him that he was driving starships. I don't know about driving starships, but he tells him he was driving starships when his great-great-grandfather was in diapers. And he thought he'd be grateful of his help, but yeah, no, he didn't. I don't think he's ever been driving starships, to be fair, but
Well, he was third
Again.
in command, so he did take the
helm?
the Enterprise a number of times. Well, he took the bridge. He took the con. Well,
he did take
the
the
con
bridge.
can both mean the con station and it can mean being
Yeah.
in charge of the bridge. But he took command many a time. So I mean, yeah, you can judge the person in command to be driving as much as the person pressing the buttons. I
I
suppose.
know. I love it in like Star Trek. I don't know. Was it Star Trek 6, where they're leaving space dock, and like Savick. Oh no, it's Star Trek 2. It was like Savick, take the comm. So she sits in the captain's chair and she says to Sulu, "Take us out." It's like that's what she did. Sulu did all the work. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
But it's I don't know. It's a great honor to give the order or something like that. So I guess that's part of it.
Yeah.
Another point, really quick, before I know the questions are coming. I also thought that scene was character assassination for Geordi. He has personal responsibility. He knows how to talk to people. The way he dealt with him to the point where he's damn near raising his voice is not how a senior officer would have ever acted, and especially to someone retired or no, a senior ranked officer, especially someone as infamous as Scotty. Now, had it have been Leah Brahms, he would have been in there with a heart on. But I'm like, this is the male version of Leah Brahms showing up here. He was making shit happen. So for some reason, he's not all googly eyed here. But
He
like the
should
way
be
he
an
just
absolute
speaks to
legend,
him on the bridge
you know?
just irks me the frick out.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of, I mean, you know, Moore had purposely put this friction in to sort of show that they're really different characters. You know, it's not like Geordie's the new Scotty, because they're trying to, again, just preserve their separate identity as a crew rather than the original series crew. But Alexander Singer had some trepidation about this antagonistic relationship between them. He felt like the audience would immediately have sympathy for Scotty, and it would be damaging for the Forge's personality and or you know his fan base or whatever. But so they had to have some meetings before they started production, which I think actually what's he called? LaForge's actor took some exception to.
LeVar.
LeVar Burton took a little bit of exception to, because he wasn't used to sort of being called in before they start filming and being told how he should or shouldn't play a character, or he felt he understood it enough that he didn't, you know, need micromanaging. But they just wanted to make sure that it was just like a bit of a flash in the pan moment of frustration and not any actual sort of nastiness, which obviously gets smoothed over really quickly, and then he becomes fast friends with him. So but it was just to sort of to preserve their separate identities and to create a little bit of drama and interest in the story.
Can I just say I love Data in this? He just has little tongue going on. This is a great shot you stuck on right there.
Yeah.
And what am I going to say about that glass?
It was a candle holder.
Yeah, it's an uncandle again,
uncandle.
like we had. Was it last week? Or
Another
week
uncandle. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Yes, Supreme. We've lingered on a data pick again.
I'm doing my part to prolong the
manufactured by Tabikins again.
Thing is, finding the pictures in this website is a lot easier, because rather than just having like one or two pictures per scene, it's like there's like
you can step through.
There's thousands of them.
Yes,
there's
I like that. Do that. Oh, okay. That does it for me.
It's almost moving.
Yeah, it is like almost, you know, like, but.
Look at his little innocent face there. To be fair, that is probably one of the cutest pictures I've seen of him.
He does look like a puppy there.
Yeah, he's got the puppy eyes.
There's a great Facebook group I found during the week, and it's called something like Star Trek TNG frame by frame or something. It's just literally framed. It takes them about 3 weeks to get through one episode. They just pick little spots like that constantly. But it's nice when you see when you come up and you go, oh, nice. Nice. I usually quote out of context.
So, carrying on with this act, just to get to the end of it. Later, Scotty arrives in 10 forward, walks over to the bar and orders a Scotch whiskey. Neat. He's repulsed when he tastes the drink and disputes that it's actually Scotch. But also sitting at the bar, quite possibly studying social interactions, as what Data does, is Data. He explains to Scotty about the invention of synthahol. And Scotty, being sharp as a button, notices that Data isn't exactly human, is he? And Data introduces himself as an android, etc. Scotty wonders, synthetic Scotch, synthetic commanders.
Yeah, I don't know of any whiskey connoisseur who would drink Scotch. I know Americans drink Scotch, But generally speaking, they go for the single malts. Scotch would indicate a blended whiskey, and
Yeah.
that's just not what Scottish people drink.
No.
Not a thing.
Data offers Scotty an alcoholic drink from Guinan's personal supply. Stepping behind the bar and pulling out a bottle with neon green liquid inside. After Scotty asks what it is, Data attempts a rudimentary examination by sight and then by smell, but cannot describe it any more precisely than it is green. The engineer's reaction to this drink is much more pleasant, and Data shortly tops it up with another glass. Now, I do have a clip here. I don't know, you guys in the studio might not be able to hear this, but I'm going to play it anyway. This is a side-by-side comparison by this episode and by the TOS episode by any other name.
What is it? It is... It is... It is green.
I found this in Gunner room. Gunner mirror. What is it? Well, it's green.
Hopefully, Smile Rainbow says, sorry, I had to turn it up. Probably didn't have it quite loud enough. But,
I don't know. I think we got it.
I think Data's delivery of it was a lot better.
Data's
actually.
facial expressions in that one were fantastic in that clip. I didn't notice that before, like how colorful they were with the blinking and him just, while he was doing that.
There was a third that is green in Generations as well, I believe. More or less standing in the exact same spot with Data on the other side of the bar. Where he goes,
Thank
I
you,
hate
Monty.
this. This
Oh
is
my
revolting.
God.
I think he does the It Is Green thing again.
Yeah. It is green.
I did make it a question last week. It is green as being an answer or something. Or not last week, the week before.
Anyway, that was the end of Act 2.
Hold on. She's in the house. Shuttlecraft in the sky. I can fly twice as high.
Smiley Rainbow.
Hi, Smiler.
Questions, Sean?
Oh, sorry. I was Googling myself. There we go. What did it say? What planet did Scotty say the Enterprise was spiraling down to? Was it... Excuse me, if I could paste now. A. Omicron Persei 8. B. Rigel 7. C. Viridian 3. Or D. PSI 2000 or Psi 2000. And the bonus question. In what real-world event did James Doohan lose a finger? What real-world event?
Oh,
So it's quite a well-known
so
piece
I
of
wanted to
trivia,
do a
but
whole
not-
piece of trivia about that, but I guess
Oh,
I'll
well,
have to
it's
wait
gone
until
now.
you...
Sorry.
I'll have to wait until you give the answer, but I'll do the other trivia in the meantime. So there are, from the Dyson sphere, there are both internal and exterior sort of sets or maquettes or, things that were built by Gregory Hine Inc. or Gine Inc. And they also used matte paintings by Eric Chauvin. They were originally going to have like a CGI approach, but that never came to fruition because at the time CGI was too expensive. Covered that bit. So there was this bit where Scotty says about, you didn't actually tell him how long it takes. And obviously, in Star Trek 3 Search for Spock, he hints to Kirk that he might have overstate some of his problems to make a better name for himself in order to solve them in less time. And this behavior was addressed in Lower Decks episode Temporal Edict, where it was given this name buffer time, where people build in buffer time when they say how long something takes. So it's just nice that, even in the most recent installments, they're making reference to such things. We talked a little bit about the antagonistic relationship, which is fine. The other thing that Singer had some trepidation about was actually James Doohan's ability to pull off this episode, because for a start, obviously James Doohan by this point was getting on a bit, so he didn't know what physical shape he was in, and was also a little bit concerned about the fact that there was so much dialogue and so much kind of drama and a lot of different notes to hit. There was emotional scenes, there were funny scenes, and he was a little bit worried as to James Doohan's ability to perform. And in actual fact, I had this sort of in the reception bit at the end, but James Doohan has more lines of dialogue in this guest appearance than he ever did in one episode of the original series. Then again, a bit like he did with LaForge, Alexander Singer insisted on meeting with him beforehand, and they sat down, and James Doohan was so enthusiastic about the role and was so kind of articulate and passionate that he kind of really set Singer's fears to ease, which was good. I was going to mention about the missing finger as he's handed the scotch in, handed the whiskey glass in this scene. They also wanted Whoopi Goldberg to be in this scene as well, but it wouldn't fit with her production schedule, so they had Data fill in instead. And yes, you mentioned obviously that there's the reference to By Any Other Name with the It's Green reference.
Although it's just as well Whoopi wasn't in the scene, because then they wouldn't have acknowledged each other, and she straight up walked onto the bridge in Generations. Why she beamed off and walked onto the bridge, I don't know, but she was there. And it would have kind of messed up that scene a little bit, even more than it already did. So just as well. And also on you mentioned the line counter thing. Shatner was very famous for counting lines, getting lines rewritten so the way he wanted to say them, having lines taken off other characters and given back to him, or having the script rewritten. Also, if someone had a close-up where they were reacting to where they said a line, rather than the camera being on them when they said the line, he'd have the director change it so it would be on him reacting to a line. So there's he had a very, very big ego, which surprises nobody, but he really kind of worked to basically get as much attention onto himself all the time. So that's probably part of the reason why Scotty didn't have a lot of lines, because Shatner hoovered up as many as he could get.
And they weren't, and he wanted to be in the Kelvin timeline films. It's like, I think everyone's had enough of you, sir.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he wrote like continuity novels where Kirk survived and was his body was beamed up and Section 31 reanimated him. They kind of alluded a slight bit to it in Picard.
That was kind of a little joke in Picard, wasn't it? I thought it was quite funny. Yeah.
That was a very deliberate nod to his kind of ego
Kirk's
of
body.
trying to stay going and make it, even though they killed him again twice in the same film, to try and bring him back a third time. And they're like, look, we love you, but you're 90. Let's stop here.
Yeah, very funny.
I think this scene is I think the second time Data gets behind the bar so far in the series. Where
Conundrum, he was behind the bar. Thought he was a barman.
Yeah.
So answers to the questions then, and the first one is D, Psi 2000.
It is. Do you know what Omicron Persei 8 is from? That's from Futurama. It's where those kind of green aliens come from.
I say now.
Rigel 7, that should be fresh in your memory.
Rigel 7. Was that the last episode?
The last episode, and it was also mentioned in The Cage. Yeah, the episode. That's where that is. Viridian 3.
Why do I know Viridian 3? Is that from a film?
Yeah, it's where the Enterprise D crashes in Generations.
That's
and,
it.
Psi 2000 was the answer. And he lost a finger in the Normandy landings.
Yeah, he was in the D-Day landings. Yeah, and he lost his finger in the D-Day landings.
My buddy Ferdia grew up beside the beach where they shot Saving Private Ryan, and he said he can't watch the film because to him it's so unrealistic because he knows that beach so well. He's like, literally his primary school was you just walk down a little path and you're on that beach. So every lunchtime they're walking around it. So he just cannot watch the film and take it seriously because it completely throws him out of it for that reason.
So there's lots of names for the thing.
A few
Yeah, and I
Skinnies,
just
yeah.
wanted to say a bit more about that D-Day thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading into it, and it was just fascinating. So he signed up for in the Canadian Infantry Division. He made it as far as lieutenant in only 1 year, which just seems crazy because he was born in
During a
1920.
war, it
and
happens. Yeah.
joined up at 19, and then by the time he was 20, he was a lieutenant, sent over to England with the 4th Field Artillery Regiment. And 4 years later, he took part in the D-Day storming of Normandy Beach. And the Canadian Army and the division that he was in took the area known as Juno Beach. And, they managed to get all past, the initial munitions and getting through all the sand with the mines and everything. And then, they seemed to have fate on their side. And then by that night, they went from just a normal beach to being like a whole sort of military encampment. But it was actually friendly fire. So that night, a jumpy Canadian sentry fired at him as he was walking back to his post. And he took 6 bullets, 4 in the knee, 1 in the chest, and 1 in the right hand, which obviously took off his finger. And apparently the one to his chest would have killed him if it wasn't deflected by a cigarette case. So he's always joked that smoking had actually saved his life. But I just thought it was a fascinating story. And then shortly after that, in 1945, around the Christmas, he returned and was listening on the radio to what he called the worst drama he'd ever heard. And it prompted him to go down to the radio station on a whim and do a recording of his own. They were so impressed with him that started his acting career, and he did a lot of radio work initially, which meant actually practicing a lot of accents, which is why when he eventually got introduced to the role with Star Trek, they said, what accent do you want to do? And he was like, well, pick one. And then he thought, oh, actually, I think it should be a Scotsman, and they were delighted with that idea. So that's how they went with that.
Yeah, he felt all the good engineers back there were Scots. They were involved in railways and bridges and things. And going on the voices thing, in the animated series, he did most of the guest stars. Most of the voices are him. He's like more than half the people in the show, pretty much. Anytime there's a male character that aren't the primary cast, it's just him. So he very much had a career as a voice artist on top of just being Jimmy Doohan, or being Scotty, should I say.
Wookiee asked Shatner write the Tech War books. He did write Tech War.
He
books.
did,
and there was a short-lived series. I think I had the computer game, early PC computer game Tech Wars, Shatner's Tech Wars. It was more. It wasn't about big robots fighting out. No, it was kind of like a sort of sci-fi noir police cop detective kind of.
Yeah, there was a show of it briefly, I think, and he was in it, as I recall.
Yeah, it's kind of like what was the police show he used to be in?
T.J. Hooker.
T.J. Hooker. It was like maybe like T.J. Hooker in space.
And one of his lackeys in T.J. Hooker James Darren went on to play Vic Fontaine in DS9.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he's kind of like the third cop in T.J. Hooker.
He had a big career in the 60s, and he was in all these kind of Rat Pack movies and had a #1 hit. And then 30 years later, everyone forgot him.
Yeah. And then he is an absolute legend as Vic Fontaine. I got a feeling Ruth might win this one this time.
Monty, you didn't put Wookiee on there for the anti-points.
Yes, we have to have a Wookiee.
All right, then let's put a Wookiee on there as well. Then. Okay.
What do we do again?
Spin that wheel.
Everyone loses points if Wookiee wins or something. What was it?
Yeah, he cancels out the points.
Oh,
okay. Woohoo! So I think putting
I tried, Ruth. I really tried.
I put Wookiee on the wheel so the points wouldn't go to Ruth.
Yeah, that would have been a Ruth. That was. Okay, so Act 3. Oh, we've made it all the way to Act 3 already. Okay, so A drunken Scotty with a bottle and a glass in hand arrives at the holodeck, having been informed of them by Data. He requests a simulation of the bridge of the Enterprise, but the computer wants him to be more specific. So Scotty states slowly and clearly, NCC 1701, no bloody A, B, C, or D. And the computer accepts his instructions and creates an authentic replica of the bridge. In an instant, Scotty feels like he's home. Here's a series of pictures of him going on the bridge. You see from the back, he's coming on from like the sort of left-hand side. But then when you get the front shot of that, you can see that the door alcove is clearly behind him. So.
Yeah, they only built like the lift, turbo lift at the aft port and the one station, and they had to kind of flip that station around. So that's all they built. What you can see in shot there is exactly what they built. The camera moves an inch either way and things are out of shot, but that station gets flipped to the opposite side so they can do the reverse to show Picard.
Yeah.
And as I said, for some reason they lost the HD footage of Picard, so it goes from HD Scotty, ST Picard, HD Scotty, ST Picard. It looks awful as they go back and forth.
I was actually shocked at like how little they actually built, like just the one console and the that's it in its entirety.
And in Enterprise for In a Mirror Darkly, they just had a fan set. They just borrowed it and had it shipped in. Put it together, used it, a full 360 set, and shipped it back to the guy who had it, and they went back to making fan films on it. Yeah,
and that's that one that's now in New York or New York State.
Yeah, and but I suppose it's technically screen used.
Yeah,
makes it work more.
Yeah, so that's the entire set, and the only thing that really annoyed me with it is the brown carpet. Because I mean,
that's not right.
If you look at this, it's supposed to be like black around the edge and then grey carpet. It's like black and grey, but when you get to this shot, it's just like all light brown. It's kind of weird. But you know, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, you can also tell that the chairs aren't quite weathered the right way, and particularly the captain's chair. It's not, and also the arms are black. They should be more of a brown kind of mahogany wood thing. And the buttons don't have the colors in them. Yeah, there's a couple of things that aren't quite right.
It's a simulation.
Fairly decent for the 90s, yeah.
Fairly decent.
Well, you can argue that, yeah.
It's the planet Gideon we see on the view screen, which is it's from the episode Mark of the Gideon, which is season 3, episode 17 of TOS. So here you can see there's Picard.
You can see the shot is just pure muck. It's all grainy and crap. You skip Pio forward and you see Scotty and he looks perfect. They just lost the reverse shots and they had to upscale it.
They used Mark of the Gideon because Kirk's transported onto a version of the Enterprise that's a fake version of the Enterprise, and he's the only person on board. The aliens recreated the Enterprise in exact detail. Okay. So they've got all these shots.
Blank plate,
yeah, they've got all these shots of the Enterprise like empty. So that's why they used it from that episode. So Scotty toasts his former crewmates, and Picard arrives. Scotty offers Picard some of the green drink, and goes to tell him to be careful, but Picard downs it in one straight away, and quickly identifies it as Aldebaran. I practiced that, before this bloody live
Aldebaran
stream.
whiskey.
I practiced it over and over again, and I kept getting it wrong. He turns out to be the one that bought it for Guinan in the first place. Picard recognizes his surroundings as a Constitution-class starship, as he's seen one in the Fleet Museum, and notes that this was Scotty's Enterprise. We get a bit of continuity there with Picard Season 3, because we see the Constitution-class starship, 2 of them actually.
Don't mention it. Don't mention what it's called.
Okay, I won't mention it.
Yeah. Well, you see the A, but don't mention which.
We see the A, but we actually see a sort of TOS style.
That's
Constitution.
the one. Yeah. Don't mention the name of it.
Scotty points out that he's served on 2 Constitution ships, and this is the first he was ever served as chief engineer. Scotty mentions that he served on 11 ships of varying classes, but it was this Enterprise is the only one he misses. Picard, taking Chekhov's seat, tells Scotty that about the Stargazer, and that it was his first ship. It was underpowered and overworked, and his Enterprise is far superior in many ways, but he'd give anything sometimes to command the Stargazer again. They toast the Enterprise and the Stargazer, and Picard asks Scotty what he thinks of the Enterprise D. Scotty says that she's a beauty, but on his ship he could tell how fast they were going just by the feel of the deck plates, and on this ship he's just in the way. He realizes he doesn't belong on Picard's ship, and his ship's just a holographic fantasy, and it's time to move on. Scotty orders the computer to turn the bloody thing off. Scotty laments that it's time he acted his age. Then we move on later on in Picard's ready room. Picard summons Geordi and asks him if he would accompany Scotty to the Janolan to recover the sensor logs that the Janolan has took of the sphere. Geordi's like, why me? Can't you send somebody else? But Picard goes to pains to not make it an order, but would like Geordi's help to make Scotty feel useful again, and Geordi eventually agrees. As Geordi leaves the ready room, Data reports that he's discovered what looks to be a communications device on the sphere. Riker asks if they can open up a channel, but they're not in the right position, so Riker orders them to reposition over the comms array and calls Picard to the bridge. Meanwhile, down in the transporter room, a hungover Scotty and Geordi prepare to transport down to the Janolan. Scotty tells Geordi that you should never get drunk unless you're willing to pay for it the next day. Geordi's like, okay. And they beam down. This is a shot of the Enterprise going towards the big door.
Sorry, we didn't cover this one earlier, so I'll just go back on it in a little goof. There's a shot earlier where it shows up beside the sphere and you can see the full curvature. It's supposed to be the size of a solar system. There's no shot that it will be any bigger than the head of a pin, and even then that's being generous, that you would see any sort of curve. So yeah, it shouldn't be, but this one is fine. They show it as a big flat wall, which is exactly how it should look. In pretty much any shot you can see the two of them in the same shot.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we see them inside as well. On the bridge, they approach the communication point and find a huge door. They open a channel to ring the bell, and a tractor beam locks on and knocks out main power, and they get tractored inside the sphere. Here's the Enterprise being hooked by the tractor beam and sucked inside. But I thought that as well. When you see outside, you see it looks like a perfect wall, and then you come inside and you get this sense that the whole thing's like curved, and it doesn't give the right sense of scale because it looks like maybe a planet. An inverse planet, rather than the side of a solar system size ball.
Yeah, the curvature, you couldn't tell it from that angle. You know, it's like getting your eyeball right really close to the ground and trying to see the curvature of the Earth. You just can't. It's really close.
Yeah. Maybe if I go back out.
I don't think at this point in time they actually understood like the scale of things in space, because it was a bit hard to fathom it in the 90s.
Well,
so
a lot
you could tell them make blunders throughout Star Trek with that.
Yeah, like those mountains would be taller than the Earth. Like you can see mountains there; they'd be taller than the Earth. It's just the scale is wrong.
Yeah.
There's lots of problems with ships, especially when the ships multiple shots with ships in the same shots, that they're just always out of scale. One's too big, one's too small. It's whatever fits. The Defiant is famously sometimes 5 times as big in one shot as it is in the next, just depending on what they're trying to convey.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 50 meters long, sometimes it's 200 meters long. Nobody can decide. We don't know.
That was the end of Act 3, by the way. So,
That'll do us.
There's probably an element of how much they respect their audience as well, right? Because they're trying to describe visually to the audience this really big sphere. So they're showing it as a really big sphere, you know, rather than just as a flat ground, which people might go, well, that's not a sphere.
Yeah.
Okay, so question 3: How many ships does Scotty serve on? A9, B10, C11, D47. And the second one is, surprisingly, what is the name of the Constitution class in the Fleet Museum? And I don't mean the Enterprise A, I mean the original style, one of the original 12 Connies. What one is it? I will say it's named after a US state, so if you don't know, that'll give you a chance to have a guess.
I've just ceased to really get any of the questions in this episode, so I'm not even going to answer. Anyway, okay, so when Scotty speaks to the Enterprise computer before entering the holodeck, this is the only time in Next Generation where one actor from the original series interacts with another actor from the original series, because obviously Majel Barrett was also in the original series, albeit as a different character than the one that she plays in TNG, being the computer. There's also a few continuity errors. So there's some stuff about like the different versions of the Enterprise bridge and stuff, because there was something like 6 different iterations of the Enterprise bridge.
Yeah, and in the pilot they have
different ones in different episodes, and then there were several that changed throughout the films. But obviously, although the computer wanted him to specify which Enterprise, it didn't ask, you know, which bridge model. It just defaulted to that.
Yeah,
one.
the photos behind the sets kind of changed in the pilot, the on-air pilot. There's like a kind of a hose thing with a little viewer on it, and then that disappears, and the wood is colored different colors. So there's a lot of little details that do change.
In the pilot, it's all like greys and blacks. There's no red. So
I much preferred that, but they made it more bright.
Then they made it more
90s
bright,
and they wanted to show off color TV. So
and then in the first season, the screens, the big screens, didn't have the pictures in them, and were just like different color lights. They just
is that what they did? They had diffused light. Okay.
They had like diffused lights in those screens rather than, I think they were supposed to look like nebulas or something. But then in the second series, they put pictures in them so that they had stuff in them.
So they look like space. Just to give
but
you
generally, you had
space,
the pilot one, the slight iterations of the same thing through TOS, the motion picture, the redone motion picture in Star Trek 2. So there's definitely 4 or 5.
Yeah, but even then, as I said, the chairs change a little, buttons change.
Yeah, buttons change.
The photos behind them changed. Just little things, you know, very modest. Maybe the carpet was changed at some stage, and it's a slightly different shade of grey. And just, you know, you drive yourself crazy with these things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I mentioned about the continuity errors. So just before he went into the holodeck, his coif was really nice and neat, and then it was all mussed up. But also he was, as if approaching the holodeck, sort of sounding and acting quite drunk. And then when Picard comes in, he seems to have sobered up, which ironically, shrugging off the effects of alcohol is what you can do with synthahol, but what you're not supposed to be able to do with the prop stuff that he was actually drinking. And also the bottle itself, the stopper was on when he walked in and it was off. The bottle itself, I don't know who did this research, but I've looked up these things and I think they're probably bang on. Was a Cuervo 1800 bottle filled with high C ecto cooler. So high C ecto cooler is
the Ghostbusters drink, yeah.
Oh, is it? It's like
So they had
there's a little Slimer on it.
I've only seen this in pop culture
like
from America.
bright
They used to,
green.
maybe Tavi remembers it, but it was it was a Kool-Aid thing. You mixed it with water and you know, it was bright green.
I-C space ecto ECTO. There it is, ecto cooler.
Yeah, so you mixed it with water and made a big picture of it, you know, for all your friends, and it was obviously full of E numbers, and not good
Yeah.
for you, but you know,
You scroll down a
Ghostbusters is
bit.
big.
Some of the other
So
pictures
Tavi,
do it more
you remember
justice
this
where you
stuff?
see it in like
yeah,
a
it's
jug.
really...
I remember High C, but I don't remember the ectoplasm
Mm. Well, it would
one.
have been, as I said,
It's
it would
like
have
a
been
creamy,
Ghostbusters
bright
era, so it would have
green.
been 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. But we had ours, no, our main like powder drink was like a Kool-Aid. And that was green when the Hulk was out. But not they didn't do
I'm
one for
not saying
Ghostbusters.
I'm not saying it was better, but like all those E numbers and things, the kids now just don't have those opportunities. You know, like they make things so much safer now. Like whatever chemicals they have to
Boring.
put in to make it that luminous green color, that you can't get that anymore.
No.
The scene of the Enterprise bridge was made by looping footage of the empty bridge as seen from the episode Side of Paradise, and then some blue screening. Originally, they were going to have holograms of the crew where he could sort of interact with, you know, old footage of the crew and stuff, which they didn't do. But I don't know if we've mentioned it to Tavi as something to look forward to, but they actually got round to doing in the Deep Space Nine episode Trials and Tribulations, which is an absolutely amazing episode where they do a crossover with the original series and they actually go back to the Enterprise and everything. It's brilliant. You've got to watch the original series episode before watching that Deep Space Nine episode. It's just fantastic.
Also, when you get a chance, balance the power from the original series and like the third episode of Strange New Worlds, they remake it and it's immense. If you watch one after the other, it's so good.
Okay.
I thought they used
We
the
talked about
shots
his
from
finger
Mark of
earlier.
the Gideon. But anyway,
Sorry?
I thought they used the empty shots from Mark of the Gideon. But maybe they used shots from both.
Very
Yeah, I
possible.
mean,
yeah.
the trivia and stuff online isn't always 100% accurate, so could have been. But yeah, I think that's all of my comments for that act.
And the answer to the questions.
Yeah. Well, I'm covered in high seas.
Hey,
Yeah, so
high
it
seas.
is indeed 11 ships, and it was the USS New Jersey.
New Jersey.
NCC. Does anyone want to guess what the registry
I don't
was?
know.
1975, which was the birth year
Great
of
year.
the showrunner Terry Matalas, and he was born in 1975, and he is from New Jersey. So
Yeah.
that answers why that's called the New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah, there is the Ruth California. The ships in lower decks are the California class, but we never see the USS California so far. There's also a Texas class, and similarly, I don't think we see the USS Texas. But in theory, there must be a USS California and a USS Texas out there, but they are in lower decks, not in Picard.
Yes, California. That is the ship, isn't it? Is it California?
Yeah, it's kind of like an upside down. It's kind of like a Reliant, you know. It's sort of, you know, but it's just a saucer with two nacelles coming off it, but kind of a droopy kind of thing.
It's not great looking, I don't think. But
I like them,
For
but
some reason,
it's not meant to be great looking. It's meant to look a bit crap. That's kind of the point, I think. So
yeah.
I respect that.
So yes, I only know that because I did look it up because I remembered seeing one in the fleet in Picard, and I was like, oh, I remember that. So who? So that's myself and Tavi, and
I think that's it.
right,
And we have to put a Wookiee in as a.
Anna Ruth.
Oh, we're leaving Ruth in for California. All right.
Here we go.
It was your own undoing.
After about 14 spins of the wheel, Ruth finally gets.
Yes, Ruth. You got one.
Yeah, don't play the lot of Ruth. Your luck's not in.
Oh, come on, not fair.
Yeah,
Yeah, you say that, Ruth, but
Monty-
I thought he said state as well. So just have it on that basis.
Well, I did say state, so it was New Jersey.
That's not a state, though. That's a city in New York State, isn't it?
No, what?
New Jersey is its own
New
state.
Jersey's a state.
Oh, right, okay.
It's one of the 13, the original 13 colonies.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
My mistake.
There is a New Jersey in New Jersey, same way there's a New York in New York, but I believe so. But the yeah, no, New Jersey's a state.
Just below New York.
Yeah.
Okay, Act 4. Act 4.
Sorry, it was a ship named after a state, not a class. Well, the first ship of the class then gives the name to the class. So the USS Defiant is a Defiant class ship because it's the first one. And similarly, you know, there was a USS Galaxy before there was the USS Enterprise because it's a Galaxy class and so on.
Yep.
Sorry, Act 4.
And there was a Constitution before the original Enterprise.
There would have been indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Crapanapanori. I had more questions and I think they got deleted. Okay, this is going to be fun. Please continue.
You can make them up.
I just no, when I restarted, it kind of deleted them, and now I can't remember what they were. It'll come to me.
Okay.
All right.
No worries. No worries. Jay, right. Due to the fact that the resonance frequency of the tractor beams used to pull the Enterprise inside wasn't compatible with the ship's power systems, the relays for the warp and impulse drive overloaded and rendered them inoperable. So the Enterprise has now lost primary and auxiliary systems, and once she is released from the tractor beams, is still moving under inertia, and it's heading straight towards the star at the center of the sphere. Back on the Genola, Scotty and Geordie are working on the Genola computer core. Scotty's not having much luck, thinking it's all obsolete garbage. Geordie tries to make him feel better, pointing out that some things haven't changed a lot in all these years, like the transporters and the impulse engines. He knows if it wasn't for the crash, the ship might have been in service today. After some thought, Scotty asks Geordie if he's ever heard of a dynamic mode converter, as that's what they used to use back in the day to get things off of the computer core. And Geordie admits he's not seen anything like that in some time, but does have something similar that might do the job. So they try to contact the Enterprise, but they get no response. Back on the Enterprise, they are still heading towards the star. Data reports that they will enter the sun in 3 minutes. Riker reports that they only have 30% of the maneuvering thrusters, not enough to stop the Enterprise's inertia. Ensign Rager, though, uses those maneuvering thrusters to steer them into an orbit around the star. Picard orders Data to scan the surface of the sphere and see if they can find out why they were pulled in. You right there?
Sorry.
Back on the Genola, the two engineers realise the Enterprise must have been pulled inside, so Geordie wonders if they can get the Genola's engines back up and running. Scotty thinks he must be daft, as everything is shot, and they would need over a week at least to get it working again. But Scotty continues ranting, but we don't have a week, so there's no sense in crying about it, and they get started on restoring the power. Back on the Enterprise, Data reports that the sphere is abandoned as the stars become highly unstable. It also looks like they have unintentionally triggered an automatic piloting beam that guided the ship that used to guide ships into the sphere. Worf reports that the star is emitting a massive solar flare, so they raise the shields. And Data reports that within 3 hours, the solar flares will become larger, and the Enterprise shields will be insufficient to protect them. Dun, dun, dun,
I thought it was a bit crazy that they didn't know the scale, because they enter at Earth's orbit. And Earth is a long way away from the sun, or at least the size of the Dyson sphere. Like coming in from the range and then being sucked towards the star, they would have had to been warped towards the star. Because that was
the same comment. Weren't they just drifting? How long would that have taken?
They'd be there for weeks.
Well, presuming I know the Earth are 7 light minutes from the sun, so you know, and presuming they're moving at full impulse, which is a quarter of the speed of light, then I suppose about half an hour.
They
But
weren't
that would
moving.
be full
They
impulse
weren't-
would be quite
they-
fast,
they
really.
weren't
No, warp
moving
speed is exponential, isn't it?
No, I'm saying impulse is about a quarter of the speed of light. So presuming that was the speed they were going, is about
They
half an hour.
weren't. They weren't. They were
They weren't. They were
stationary.
drifting. They were completely
Yeah.
drifting.
They were dragged in
Okay.
via
They
piloting
weren't under
beams.
power.
They weren't
They
under
probably
power.
had months. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You could see as they were dragged through, it was just they were just drifting along, and you think, yeah, they'd take them months.
That'd be
maybe.
like, if we pushed off a ship from Earth, like it would get to the sun in like a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It would take many, many, many years, I assume.
Well, it's taken us 30 years to get the V'ger probes to the edge of the Oort cloud, so it's just, yeah. So yeah, we're not really there yet. It literally takes decades for us.
But
And that's why we do
anyway,
it on purpose.
It's not as big in that sphere as we thought.
It's actually
Yeah.
quite hard to crash into a planet. You kind of bounce off it. You have to come in and kind of glide into it at an angle. So if you don't hit it just right, you bounce off. So it's actually
Yeah.
quite hard to do. Yeah.
I'm looking at it. I'm wondering. I was like, if they had enough technology to build a Dyson sphere, don't you think you would have made sure that the sun was stable? You think they would have had the technology to put it on a stable star, or not even that one? This star looks hot as hell. Why couldn't they put it on a dying star?
It could have been developed
So
a billion years ago, though. I mean, it could have been.
But that was my other comment. This has probably been here for thousands of years, if not longer. But the sun's suddenly getting critical within hours of them arriving.
Yeah, I know. It's a quinky dink.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's
I just
well
feel like the star,
timing.
even billions. I think that if you can build a Dyson sphere, you would be smart enough to be able to predict the nature of a star, or you'll die inside the Dyson sphere quite immediately. So it's, I mean, I understand that they abandoned it, but I'm like, really though?
Where did they all go? Surely there would be knowledge of this vast conglomerate of people that were like millions and millions of planet population who all left. Didn't they ever tell their story to anyone?
No.
We'll never
Did they live
know.
on other
And-
planets?
I think like this episode annoyed because it was one of those big holes in Star Trek for me, and I'm like, really? Did you guys just leave the Dyson sphere? And I think they only mentioned it in Lower Decks at one point.
No, they mentioned they're going to send out a science vessel.
Yeah, but then the end.
Pretty much.
You think they could have gone to the outside of the Dyson sphere? If they're being irradiated from the inside, it's still providing power. They could have just made it habitable on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, too much smart stuff. Obviously, the Borg got them.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Have we got a question, Sean?
Yeah, sorry, I did have questions, and then when I reset our computer, it just deleted them. So we did a bit of a bodge job here. So I think this is more or less what I had before. What instruction did Picard give for the thrusters, basically in order to go into orbit? Port forward, starboard back. Port back, starboard forward.
Oh, Christ.
Port and starboard forward. Port and starboard back.
Oh no.
And I can't remember my original question, but we'll throw this one in. What was the name of the Enterprise engineering book written by Scotty in universe? Well, what was the name of the book? So it's kind of the technical
Once
manual.
again, I
for
don't know either
TOS.
question.
Sorry,
It's
it's
been
not.
like probably the only week
Yeah.
ever in
Yeah.
that I've just not been able to answer any question after question.
Sorry.
And
You're not
my
gonna
only
imagine this
two
one.
comments, which were about the how did they get to the sun so quickly, and why was it suddenly going critical after all this time? That was
Oh no.
all I had on Act 4. So yeah, you'll have to fill, Monty.
I'm gonna go with Tabby's gone C, Ruth's gone B. I'm gonna go A. Oh no, that was the wrong chat. Vault didn't want to go A. I will go A. Vault's agreeing with me.
I don't know. I just got to drop C.
I no idea. What's the name of the Enterprise engineering book written by Scotty? I'm going to go with
No clue.
technical manual. No idea. No idea. Yeah. No, there's no other really. I think we've covered the size of the Dyson sphere. I thought it was quite funny how Scotty ranted about not having enough time to do this. So it's going to take weeks, but we haven't got weeks, so there's no point, And he's just kind of like talking to himself, going through his spiel that he would have gone through with Captain Kirk back in the day, but kind of just had to get it all out and then
monologuing it,
and then carried on working and got it done anyway.
Yeah, well, I remember one episode of Deep Space Nine. I actually only watched it recently, and it's like, how long did you get the cloak back online? 4 hours, or it's like 10 hours. He goes, "You got 2 on your way."
Yeah.
And he's basically like, just forget about the safety instructions. And I suppose from the perspective of O'Brien, well, if the ship blows up, he can't give out to me anymore. So just do it and just hope it works. Good luck.
Stuplum's gone for D, so we got A, B, C, D.
Brilliant.
Someone's got
gotta
the
be
right. Someone's got the right answer in there.
I'm gonna double check. This was my original question, but I can't quite remember the answer. I think it's port forward, starboard back, but give me a second on that. The other question was Mr. Scott's Guide to the Enterprise. What's the name of the book? So the first book to canonically talk about things that Heisenberg concentrate things and dilithium crystals and antimatter mixing, all those kind of things that weren't mentioned on screen. The first book before the technical manual was Mr. Scott's Guide to the Universe.
I've got it. I have
you
got it.
You just blanked on the name.
Yeah. I have got it there somewhere. But yeah.
Sorry, I will double check the question, but
And this is a 100-point question, so the fact that only one person's got it right.
Well,
So at the moment, we've got very, very close scores. We have Tavi and Ruth in first place with 190, and we have
sorry, it was port forward, starboard back. So
I got it right. My God, from my guess, I just
well done, Monty.
Well, that's quite good
so
because
we did have
I was
Tavi and Ruth in first place and Stu Plum and Mondiban in second place. But that has somewhat changed the score.
I wasn't doing very well up to that point, so I'll take it.
They did say they needed to turn into orbit, so it wasn't going to be all forward or all back. So so if you'd cop that, it was down to a 50-50. But
that was my educated forward, guess. Back. Yeah. Right, Act 5, the final act. The final act.
Nice.
Oh no, wrong place. Over there. Get over there, you picture you. So, LaForge and Scotty are still working on the repairs of the Genolan's engines by jury-rigging the ship's supply of deuterium. Scotty suggests sending it through the auxiliary tank, but Geordi doesn't think he can handle it. But when he cites the impulse engine specifications, Scotty laughs and tells Geordi, forget it. He wrote those regulations, and assures him that it'll work. On paper, a good engineer should be more cautious than he would be in the field. And it does indeed work. And they restore power. Geordi hands the captain's chair over to Scotty as he's higher rank of captain, but Scotty refuses, stating that he may be a captain by rank, but all he ever wanted to be was an engineer. And picture of the Enterprise going through a solar storm. Meanwhile, on the Enterprise, things have gotten a bit bumpy. It cuts the Enterprise and they're all like, doing the whole bumping around thing. Riker reports partial. Yeah, so we've got everybody. You gotta join. Yeah, there we
I
go.
can do a camera shake. Hold on.
It's like I see you go left and I go left, but of course it's like
It's the other way.
the opposite.
Yeah.
I need to go opposite.
Yeah. So, yes, Riker reports that their partial impulse power has been restored. Picard asks Worf if ship phasers could cut their way through the sphere, but Worf says that the sphere is composed of carbon neutronium, so their weapons would be ineffective.
I was just going to say that there's a couple of, I suppose, I don't know what you call them, stabilized shots. You can see them on YouTube where they've stabilized the camera.
Yes.
You know, they kind of zoom in and stabilize it so you can just see the actor shaking without the effect of the camera moving.
Yeah.
And it looks so fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the two together that make it work. And it is convincing when you do them together and everyone moves in sync. But yeah, not so much when they stabilize the camera.
No. Picard asks Data if there's another door. You probably want a shot of Data, don't you? Because I'm talking about Data. There he is.
Yes, please.
Picard asks Data if there's another door, but Data tells him that it would take 7 hours to scan the surface. They get hit by another flare that rocks the ship. So Data turns around and tells the captain that he will endeavour to speed up the process. It's kind of like Data's own, like, Scotty thing, you know? It's going to take 7 hours to scan the surface. But of course, you haven't got 7 hours, so I'll do it for you in 2.
I don't know who did the makeup this week, but when they have the sun in the background and he's turned around, he actually looks like he's slightly sweaty there, as if it's actually warm in the ship.
Yeah.
It's shiny.
Yeah, it's very possible to use a bit of glycerin. I don't know.
Back on the Janolan, now orbiting the Dyson sphere, they find the ion trail that can only be left by an impulse engine in full reverse. So they didn't enter willingly. Geordi also noticed that communications array, and Scotty agrees that they noticed that too and hailed it in accordance with standard procedure just before they crashed. Geordi confirms that that's standard procedure today as well. Hey, one little thing I thought about this part. Like, when they got tractored by the tractor beam thing, it knocked out both auxiliary and main power, and they got pulled inside. At no point did Picard order impulse engines to go into reverse. So, I don't know how...
Or maybe try and bang the phasers to knock off the tractor beams.
I don't know how they found these ion trails of an impulse engine in full reverse, because that never happened. That didn't happen. I don't think that's marked as a goof or anything, but I noticed it. But
Good point.
there you can see the ion distribution heading into the airlock. Geordi guesses that they are not just comms arrays, but some sort of triggering mechanism for the hatch. Scotty thinks that they just need a foot in the door, so they should keep their distance, hail it, ensure they don't get dragged inside, and then at the last minute, position the Janolan in the doorway and use the shields to keep the door open. Geordi thinks he's mad, but they decide to go with the plan anyway. So they hail it. It looks for the track beam looks for the ship, but doesn't find anything. So the doors start to close. So they put the Janolan between the doors and indeed use the shields to keep the doors open. Could you tell Chris to keep it down back there? Is it Chris's home?
I mean, he's in the living room or his bedroom, like literally at the opposite end of the bungalow.
And he's like banging plates together?
I think he's in the kitchen. Yeah, I think he's in the kitchen.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, that might be
No,
me
it's
then.
it's just TV. It's just
Oh.
TV
Oh,
in the
okay.
background.
no,
It's me then. That's Ash in the background. Or is
That's Tavi.
Oh,
it
okay.
Ash or Yuki in the kitchen?
He's got
It's
all sorts of
you-
dishes out. He's got
Panko's
some-
making all that noise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
can
it
hear
sounds like a
you.
lot of aluminium banging off aluminium.
On the there you go. There you go. On the Enterprise, they get hailed by Geordi, who outlines the plan. So the Enterprise sets course for the hatch, and there is a shot of the Enterprise. It's quite a nice shot. I think it's like it's a nice shot of the Enterprise leaving orbit of the star. It's quite an impressive shot. and on the Janolan, things aren't going so well. They lose helm control, so they can no longer move the Janolan out of the way, and the ship starts coming apart. They inform the Enterprise that they will have to destroy the Janolan to get out. So Worf readies torpedoes, and Picard gets the transporter room to lock onto the two engineers. They beam them out and fire the torpedoes and fly through the door as it closes. And here's a sequence of torpedo flying towards the Janolan, Enterprise flying towards the door, Enterprise flying away from the door, and in the transporter room, Scotty thinks,
Millennium Falcon, eat your heart out.
yeah.
I was gonna say that was very Millennium Falcon, and he looks like Han Solo right there.
Yeah.
This shot annoys me. Geordie was sitting in a chair, the captain's chair, and commanding from the chair, although he really should have been at the helm or something. But anyway, and then all of a sudden he's standing and he's got all his kit that he went...
collected all his stuff together. Yeah.
Yeah, like they were like, oh, better make sure I bring my kit back. He's like, who cares? Oh well, I don't know. They didn't line that up right. And
there's a better one than that. Points for
Go on.
guessing. The
Oh,
glaringly obvious error.
He didn't have the both of those. He only had the over the shoulder bag when he went over, and now he has two coming back.
Nope, they beam them out whilst the Janolan has still got its shields fully up.
Yes, I was gonna say that they're doing shit with shields up.
I can forgive that because if it's not a full bubble, if it's forward and back, or if they transmitted the shield frequency, that can be done. So that there is a way around that.
Well,
I can forgive it.
Moore said it was a flat out mistake. He didn't think about it. He didn't catch it. The producers didn't catch it. The technical people didn't catch it. Just one of those things. They could have explained it with a line of dialogue if they'd realised their mistake, but
or there would be a split second between you hitting it with the photon torpedoes and them beaming out. But yeah, he went from sitting to standing in the thing, and he has all of his equipment on him, and yeah, it's a very clumsy shot either way. But you could explain away the shields being up with dialogue, but they just didn't.
Shields up, shields up, shields up.
Until post-production.
Boom! Uh-oh. Bang! Oh dear. That's Geordie and Scotty dead. Oh, it's a shame. I did think as well that why did they do it from such a long way away? Because Data
easily could have calculated the minimum amount of time or whatever. I know there's a splashback off torpedoes, so you have to remain a certain distance, but you could have optimized it so they didn't scrape it quite so tight. I mean, and also it's a minor note, but they don't check that they transported the engineers back. He just goes energize, fire torpedoes, and just assumes that it's all happened okay. There was a line of dialogue where you talk to the transporter room, tell them to make a lock or something, but they didn't do it. Sorry, Mazza.
No, I was going to say that the idea that there might be some comeback from the torpedoes, that was a reason given for why it might be incorrectly regarded as a goof. But I just think, well, in that case, why didn't they transport them off and then just get close to it, sit and wait for the shields to fail, and then just slip through? Like, they really didn't have to torpedo it at all. They could have just bashed it out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full ramming speed, yeah.
But yeah, there must have been better ways, but it wouldn't have given us that cool shot of them dashing through the gap.
Yeah, it looks
Star Wars shot.
It looks pretty cool. I liked it. I liked it
too.
So in the transporter room, Scotty's like, well, that wasn't so bad, was it? Obviously, he just went through a different scenario to everyone else. It's Scotty's little world.
Yeah, well, I can tell in real world, they obviously took the shot of them beaming off and beaming back at the same time because they had the room set up, which is why he has the equipment on him. But it's cut really, really badly. Like there's no sense of what's the word, drama about the whole thing. It's just too clumsy, too lighthearted.
You can imagine as they filmed it, they filmed going down to the Janolan, and then they were like,
Yeah, and they filmed them
and
coming
now-
back
and
because
now
they were already
you're-
on the
and
set.
now
And they
you're
already had it
beaming
lit
back.
and they had the camera.
And James Stewart's like, well, that wasn't so bad, was it? But, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a clumsy shot. It was worthy of a pickup, and they didn't do it.
It's all right. It's all right. Right, so later Geordie is taking Scotty to 10 forward for a drink because they're now besties, which is really nice, I thought. And he's telling them a story about how a space baby suckled on the Enterprise in the episode Galaxy's Child, season 4, episode 16, and tells him how they changed the power frequency, thus souring the milk. Scotty tells him to enjoy these times because he's chief engineer of a starship, and when it's gone, it's gone. But instead of taking him for a drink in 10 forward with his mate, he takes him to the shuttle bay where the senior crew are waiting for him, and Geordie asks if he's going to continue on to the Norpin colony, if that's where he wants to go, but Scotty has other plans now. He's found he can still be useful in this century. But they say, not on this ship you're not, and they say goodbye to him, giving him a shuttlecraft. And even Troy says goodbye, and I think that's her only dialogue in this entire episode.
You know, I was listening to a podcast recently enough with Alexander Siddig, who obviously played Bashir, Deep Space Nine, and he was saying in some episodes he just came in for about 4 hours, and that included getting in and out of makeup. He said because of the way the union rules worked, if you were a principal, you had to appear in every episode and you had to have at least one line. So quite often they wrote a scene like this where
the principals weren't in it, though, haven't we?
Yeah, in TNG we have one or two.
No, again,
Usually Troy.
there might be one or two exceptions with
It's
special
often
union breaking
Spot
rules.
who's not in this episode, but
But quite often there was like a penalty fee. They had to pay the actor if they didn't include them. You know, there would have been kind of rules around it. So it's
there's
just
actually
the
more of a
shot.
story behind Troy's appearance in this, but I'll say that once you post.
Oh,
the
is it?
All right.
reference.
No, I don't have anything on that.
We're at the end anyway, so yeah, they all say goodbye,
All right.
including Troy. Scotty tells Geordie a ship is only as good as its engineer, and he thinks the Enterprise is in good hands. And says goodbye, and he gets in his shuttlecraft and disappears, never to be seen again.
I love that full scale mock up. I love that shuttle. It's so good. I know they use it for so long afterwards, but it's just fantastic. Still don't know where the toilet is in it, but other than that, it's a good ship. And yeah, the questions. What was the
Isn't
shuttle
it that thing just on the left there?
Here.
Like it looks
Yeah,
like a
it's
little
like-
porta potty.
Could be. Yeah. Doesn't
They
seem to be.
They just beam
Yeah,
it
doesn't
out.
seem to be a replicator, and you're supposed to have not life suits. What do you call them? What do you call the suits they wear in space? Space suits.
That's the ones. That's the
Yeah,
ones.
they're supposed to have 2 of those on board, but yeah, you wonder where these things fit, but apparently they do somewhere.
Yeah.
Actually, I just noticed there's a support under the body of it that you shouldn't really be able to see. It's just to wedge it up to carry the weight. But yeah, anyway, the question is, what was the shuttle the crew loaned Scotty? A, Galileo, B, Goddard, C, Aero Shuttle, or D, Rio Grande?
You can
And,
actually
the
tell
bonus
if you look at it. Sorry, I just. You can actually tell that these like
Yeah, the warp nacelles not
Yeah,
attached.
they're not
warp
stuck on,
nacelles
yeah.
are not actually attached. They're just like propped up against like the side there.
Yeah. Well, there's probably wheels underneath that little wedge of wood, and it's just there just to hide. It's just that skirt, and they didn't bother kind of correcting it for that one shot. So, all right, nobody will notice it. It's fine. We noticed. We knew. 35 years later, well, 28 years later, we know. The bonus question is, what nationality was James doing? So an easy question for a bonus for once.
I think I've got these.
I will tell you his parents are from Bangor, just outside of Belfast, both of them. And his mother's maiden name is Montgomery, and I did consider those for questions, but I didn't go for them. I just went for an easy one to finish.
Any goofs and things to finish off on there?
few little bitties and bobbies. Obviously, you mentioned earlier about the stories that Scotty was telling came from episodes such as The Naked Time, Wolf in the Fold, and Ilan of Troyes. And then, it's kind of nice that at the end, LaForge tells Scotty the events of Galaxy's Child. It's like they're sort of trading stories. It's
Yeah.
almost like TNG returning the favor. We've got stories too, kind of thing.
Yeah.
The entire command crew assembled to say goodbye, even Worf, who he didn't get on with, which makes you think who's driving the ship. Maybe as a matter of protocol, they could have at least left Worf or one of the command staff taking care of things.
It's quite funny though. They all say goodbye, apart from like Worf. He just kind of like stares at him, and Scotty kind of does a sort of sideways step around Worf and carries on.
Well, yeah, this is it. Obviously, he won't like sort of shake his hand or whatever, which people might think, is a bit offish. But from Scotty's point of view, they're still not very friendly with the Klingons and such like. But obviously they were attempting peace in Star Trek 6. But there's some other funny little. I took these out of my notes from earlier just because I had too many. But there's some other little funny things about this. So, although this isn't known, it's just a coincidence. And sorry, spoilers, Tavi, close your ears if you don't want to hear. But obviously, Worf and the Klingons in general have got a real thing against tribbles.
Yes.
And in Trials and Tribulations, that kind of comes out. And actually, Scotty was responsible for that initial outbreak of the tribbles and them being everywhere on the space station. So it's, obviously I know who it is as well, but it's just sort of cool how that ties in. And also Worf in that episode could have met Scotty if he'd wished to, but obviously didn't. But it's just interesting how they've got that kind of future history as well. Troy has a new hairstyle.
Yeah, I did spot that. She's got a perm.
The first new hairstyle in like 4 years or something. It's like a ponytail with like little tiny curlies that frame the face. That's way back.
I know, they've gone off the edge. Oh, there he is.
She looks like her nose is really big in that picture for some reason. But we mentioned about the fact that she hasn't been in this episode much. So he actually gives her a little kiss on his way out, which might seem a bit weird. Like, why was that? Why were they so familiar? But this episode ran about 8 minutes long, so they had to do a lot of cutting. And originally there was a quite a long scene in 10 Forward where Troy came to see how Scotty was doing, and asked him how he was feeling and settling in, and he talked about being a fish out of water and not having any purpose and stuff like that. In fact, at first he was like, "Who are you?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm a ship's counselor," and he thought she was a waitress or something. And then he realized that she was a psychiatrist of some kind. Got really defensive, like, "Oh, is LaForge sent you?" and stuff. And then they have a bit of a chat, and she actually asks him if he wants to know about, the status of his family and his former crew and those sorts of, and he's not really ready to hear about that kind of stuff, which also maybe explains why they didn't tell him about the fact that they had McCoy on board a few years previously, and actually they bumped into Spock just recently, but he said he wasn't ready to hear about all that stuff. But they had a bit of a heart-to-heart and a tete-a-tete in 10 Forward, and then obviously she sees him off here, but because that whole scene was cut, it seems a bit odd that she's seeing him off in a familiar way.
I was gonna
They
say
probably could have just cut that kiss somehow and cut around it. It just seems like there was a bit, especially since it ran 8 minutes long. But no, okay, sorry, Tabby.
Oh no, I was saying she was talking about the tribbles before. I'm watching the animated series, and I just saw the episode that was bringing up tribbles again, and that's where I found out that apparently Klingons hate the tribbles. So I saw the second one, but not the first one.
Oh gosh, Trials and Tribulations, such a funny episode.
Trouble with Tribbles is the original one. That's the
Trouble with Tribbles is, but Trials and Tribulations is great. There's like a Tribble, and it squeaks at Worf, and they go, oh, Mr. Worf, it seems it doesn't like you, and he goes, the feeling is mutual. Klingons hate Tribbles, and Tribbles hate Klingons. It's really funny.
yeah.
Anyway, and that's about
You
it.
do see
other
one in
than-
Picard.
Yeah.
In the same section 31 place that they have the spot at the Kirk body, there is a weaponized Tribble who can basically murder. It's pretty nasty.
Weird.
Yeah.
That is weird.
Nasty Tribble.
It's kind of a face hugger kind of thing. It's
That's
just
right.
like-
It is. Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but they have it sealed behind glass, so they can't do much.
The other bit was just as they, walk into here and they're like, oh, goodbye then. And he goes, you're giving me a shuttle? Like, it seems like a bit of a leap to jump to. But
Yeah.
clearly he was right. Or maybe he wasn't right, but they were just like, yeah, okay. Out of awkwardness, who knows?
I always thought it was really off that, he's going for a nice drink with his new mate, and he started to find his feet in this century. He's useful after all, and he's going to have
Send him off on his own.
a nice drink, a nice evening, and then maybe get an early night. And they're just like, right, cheerio, off you go.
It's like, you backstage, you're welcome.
Yeah, don't bother packing, just go.
Well, to be fair, he didn't have much. Well, they destroyed the gnomes. Whatever he had on it is gone. It's finished. So
Yeah, not an extra pair of uniform or anything. No, just.
and
goodbye.
also like they're kind of in the middle of nowhere because they just came off the Dyson sphere. I mean that shuttle can only do can't remember warp 2 or something.
Warp 2,
It doesn't move fast.
Yeah.
So you need to be fairly close to a planet unless you want to like travel for 10 years. Actually, I think in another episode they can travel for about 30 days. So you're relatively limited. So just get out here, it's fine. You're just die of starvation because the shuttle will run out of fuel after 30 days. It's all good. Just out you go on.
Just it seemed like
I'm
a bit
wondering
of a
if
weird ending.
If it's at least on a trade route, because I can imagine if that ship was going to a colony, how do they not know the Dyson sphere is there? Because it's obviously in a major transportation route.
Well, I can accept, because I go back to what Mazza said earlier, I can accept they couldn't see it with optical sensors or spectrographic, because if it's supposed to absorb all the light of the sun, it's like a black hole. You can only see it by the absence of light. But the other side of it is that obviously it does create a huge gravimetric wave, which would affect warp travel. So if you get too close to it, it's going to it's going to pull you out of warp or knock your warp over or something. You're going to notice basically. But if you're getting close to it, so it's not quite explained. But I guess they just took a slightly different route.
Answers to the questions.
So the shuttle was the Goddard. Galileo, I'm sure we've said it before. You know what the Galileo is, Monty?
A shuttle.
Yeah.
What about
It's
it?
the main shuttle they used in the original series.
Yeah.
The Aero Shuttle, you know what that is?
I have a model of the Galileo, the TOS.
Yeah.
TOS
very good.
Galileo.
You know what the Aero Shuttle is?
The Aero Shuttle.
You see it in lower decks. So on the underside of Voyager, there's a little captain's yacht that's supposed to come out.
Yeah.
And it's never shown. The basic explanation is it wasn't installed before they got thrown away. But there's supposed to be a shuttle that comes out of Voyager. It's called the Aero Shuttle. But they do show it in lower decks. And the Rio Grande was the runabout to discover the wormhole in Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
And James Doohan, as I said, born from Northern Irish parents, he is a Canadian.
Panconian.
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 Yeah.
Panconian, yes, sorry. Like William Shatner.
Oh, so who needs to be on the wheel of plenty?
Yeah, there should be good numbers to this one.
Ruth, Monty, Stuplum,
Mazza?
Tabby. That's it.
Wookie. Ruth. Right. I think that's everyone. It's Ruth again! Look at that! Oh, you need some clapping. There you go. Your luck's turned around, Ruth. Your luck
Yeah,
has
it's coming
turned
back.
around. Yes. I've got to get rid of some of these. Oh, I just got rid of a tab that I wanted.
So as well as discussing some reception stuff, I need some bingo points from Tavikins so I can tot up the scores.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just finishing up the bingo list.
Lovely.
Give
Thank
me
you very
one
much.
minute.
I would say Panko has put in a good last answer there, being that the last answers score 120 points. She's just catapulted herself into a points-paying position, which is amazing.
Yeah, well done, Banco. Yep, so Tavikins is just scoring the bingo. Whilst Tavikins is doing that, don't forget to put in chat what you'd score this episode out of 10. 0 to
Just
10.
wanted to say what Wookie was just talking about. We could travel to Alpha Centauri in about 10 years with a new fusion thing, and that's great. But if you're off by even like 2 days of that 10 years, or even 1 day, the planet will have moved. So the problem with space travel, all the planets are kind of they're not static; they're moving in relative to each other. So if you're off by even the littlest bit amount, you're just gonna miss it.
Oh, Alpha Centauri is a star system, not a planet. It's a star.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, it's the nearest star system. Anyway.
Yeah, it's about 3 light years or something, is it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, yeah. There's probably no habitable planets there.
We don't know. We don't know.
No, true enough.
Proxima Centauri, which is the closest one at the moment, it's like it's a 3-star star system. So 3 stars that interact with each other. There's a close-knit binary, which is Alpha Centauri and another one. Can't remember the other one. And then they're orbited by a dwarf star called Alpha Proxima, which is currently the closest star to Earth, to the solar system.
And after sorry, I had to look this up just to be sure. After the Alpha Centauri system, do you know what the next closest star to the Earth is?
Barnard star?
I'll give you a clue. The Borg visited.
No.
The Borg
359. Wolf
359. There you go. It's a real star, and it's quite close to Earth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wolf. Okay.
But Proxima Centauri has got a planet, a large Earth, a large rocky planet in the habitable zone of the star. But because it's a dwarf star, the Goldilocks zone is quite close to the star. It's actually inside the orbit of Mercury. And
so radiation,
it's tidal locked as well. So one side of the planet is always facing towards the star, and the other side's always facing away. But life could develop in the
ring,
twilight, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the kind of equator between the two.
Yeah,
you could get a little strip of. Like I mean, you think about just here on Earth, you get a big rock wall, like on the side of a motorway or something, where they've dug into the side of it, and it's just rock, it's dead, it's barren, and then just in a tiny little crack, a seed just manages to just sit in, and all of a sudden start growing a big plant, and then it traps more soil, and then all of a sudden the whole thing just gets covered. I mean, it's pretty amazing how much you can do with how little.
Finds a way.
Very much so.
Indeed. So have we got some bingo results then? Bingo bango.
Yeah, Ashley's getting all the fives.
Put into chat, so I've tallied all the scores.
I got some more in there. Apparently, Ashley won.
Cleaned up.
Bingo.
Oh my god!
4 times.
Brilliant. Makes no difference to the overall scores. That's good. I don't need to recalculate. But cool anyway.
The problem, Wookie, we're getting there is you can get up to speed.
In chat, but we haven't got anything from Ruth or Stuplum yet.
No.
Get your scores for this episode into chat, please. Ash and Panko.
You can get up to a speed to get there within like 10 years, but the problem is you end up going so fast that it'll zip past it in like no time at all. So you gotta
basically have to spend 5 years accelerating.
Yeah, 5 years accelerating and then 5 years decelerating. But that adds a lot more time to it. You really want it accelerating the whole time.
If you do it the right way, you can have a ship accelerate at roughly 9.8 meters, 10 meters a second, and then decelerate at the same speed. So, and if it's decelerating at basically what gravity is, then you can have artificial gravity really easily. Because as long as you're accelerating at roughly what Earth gravity is, then you'll there'll be a couple of days in the middle where you'll be weightless, but you'll have pretty much gravity the whole way.
Right, who's got what then, Maz?
Right, okay, I will tell you. So, top of the pops this week with 400 TNG points is Monty Ban. So 10 for you on the scoreboard.
My God. It's finally happened.
And this was due to the ABCD question where everybody chose something different and you got the right one.
Hey, I worked hard getting this win.
You. Next, with 325 TNG review points is Ruth. So 9 points for Ruth.
9 points for Ruth.
And then next, 10 points behind Ruth is Tavakins in third place with 8 points on the board.
8 points. 37.
Then next again is Stu Plum with 7 points on the board, 15 points behind Tavakins.
30.
Then next is me, languishing way towards the back of the field with like 50 TNG review points, so 6 points on the board.
828.
And then we have Ash, who picked up points on the bingo and has 5 points on the scoreboard. We should suggest to Panko and G-Star that they sign up for the bingo because then they'll get points every week, right?
Well, that's right, yeah. Was that
Even
it?
Sean.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Yeah, slight conflict of interest there, but fair enough.
You can sign up for it, but you just never look at your bingo cards.
Yeah, but you'll tell us at the end, Tavi, if they've won or not. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they can get magical points without having to do anything.
Magic.
I think Panko actually does have bingo cards, though.
Ah.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever been in the top 3 properly, and I'm in silver place with 32 points. Just 1 point ahead of our Ruth, who's 1 point ahead of Stu Plum, who's 2 points ahead of Mazim Bob. So it's all still very close at the top, apart from our guru, Tavikins. Tavikins Turner is just shot off into the lead. He's 5 points ahead of me. So
yeah, apologies. I didn't mean to make it so hard this week. It just
we're all hunting her down.
I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad, but obviously when I read it out,
This one was
apparently
a bit
it was.
difficult.
So my mistake. Okay, I'll try and go easier next week.
Oh, well,
or maybe I won't
No, it's just me that didn't know any of them. Everybody else
sometimes
knows.
easy, sometimes it's
A lot
good.
of mine
It's
were
good.
guesses, so I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Take that.
I mean, nobody knew the first one, the 2/3 of a whatever one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there was
okay.
a big old guess for, what was it, number 5, where everybody just guessed something different. But I think most people knew all the rest.
Smiler says, Tavikins in the sky, she's flying oh so high. Tavikins.
Thank you.
Right, scores.
Ooh.
Scores for this episode. Get your scores in. What shall I give it? There we go.
Yeah, we've got quite an interesting spread of scores in chat so far.
Was that 4.5 from Wookie, 4 from Ruth, 7
4
from
from Ruth,
Stuplum?
7 from Stuplum. Nothing from Wookie yet.
Oh, wasn't that
Nothing from
4.5?
Nash yet.
Did you put 4.5?
Oh, sorry, yes, that was Wookie.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got a few scores. Let's see then. Are you ready, guys, with your paddles?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I can be ready very shortly. I'm ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Boing. 5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
So
It's a
8,
spread, isn't it?
6 from Maz, was it?
All the way up to an 8?
5 from Tavi, was it? And 7 from Sean. And
Yeah,
the
it's Monty's
audience.
favorite episode of the season so far.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there haven't been that many, but yeah.
No.
Although to be
I
fair,
mean, I
it's
think,
my,
you know,
my
those
joint
who
highest.
love the original series are going to love this kind of, you know, callback episode, right? So, you know, it's a big passion for Montalban,
Well,
so I can
yeah,
understand that.
As I said, I kind of worked my way through the original series recently. Didn't enjoy it that much. I'd never. Yeah, I just it's a bit of a struggle. It hasn't aged.
Even you
well,
gave it a
but
7.
But you know, I like the original series films. Well, most of them. But yeah, look, it was all right. It was decent. You know, it one of the plot could have been a bit thicker, but they fit a hell of a lot into the time that they have. And as I said, it ran 8 minutes over, but they got a lot in, and there's a few subplots. And yeah, I like it. It's all right. It's just not amazing.
Mashed ram stew plan.
Maz Ram. What was the audience score? Was it 5, 4?
Oh, that's a good question. Blooply blue. Sorry, get my spreadsheet. Change the formula. We had so many people respond last week. I need to divide by 3. 5.166667.
5.
So
Obviously, unlike Ruth, who's a child of TNG, I was a child of TOS. So TOS is my original Star Trek, and I felt TNG was at the time, too much of a massive departure. I was just totally against it. Can't replace Kirk, Spock,
as
and
was
McCoy.
James Doohan, funnily enough.
Just can't. You can't. Just can't replace it. What's the point? But and obviously I've ended up loving all the different Star Treks. But for me, seeing Scotty back was just really fun. I liked quite a lot of the comical elements of this episode. Just Scotty being quite humorous, like the whole, look back at the drink sketch, and I like the way that they didn't just do the drink sketch again, but actually made it more funny. Like Data's comedy timing with the bottle and his facial features actually made it. It was an improvement over the original. So I like the way they took it.
Yeah, it was
better.
too in your face slapstick, the original.
Yeah. And obviously
It was
all
great
the
comedy timing on his part.
all the callbacks to the original episodes, which I love them all, so love all that, and yeah, that's why I scored it an 8. And I quite liked, we had the Enterprise being sucked into the Dyson sphere and seeing the Dyson sphere and a crashed Federation ship, and for me it was just full of all the sort of elements that I love to see in my Star Trek, and
yeah,
You
nice
certainly
lore,
can't
like
call it a
nice ship
bottle
porn.
show, right?
no, that's right.
Nice ship porn, and a really good sci-fi
The
concept.
recreation of the
core
bridge.
of it.
I mean, crazy amount of effort went into this one episode.
Recreation of the TOS bridge. I mean, that kind of give me the same sort of vibes that people see now with the third season of Picard, where they go on like the Enterprise D bridge again. And
Yeah,
that
it was
kind
a
of,
hell of a big deal when they did that. Back in
that
the
kind
day.
of gave me that kind of feeling seeing my old bridge again in TNG, and yeah, it just makes me feel nostalgic. So yes, I scored it an 8. So I was always going to score it higher than everybody else. But I can also
That's
see.
a general. You're kind of always one ahead of everyone else most of the time.
Well,
but
most of the time,
that's fine.
because I love it, don't I?
Oh, I had to give this one a 5.
Yeah,
It
there's not
was
a lot of
a-
D, man.
There's not a lot of the D, but hey, I would have to say for an episode that's thin on the D, I appreciated his appearances. So that was good. I felt this episode was putting all of its money in nostalgia and not in proper script and storyline development. So it kept, when I was trying to enjoy it, it kept pulling me out with those, but wait a minute, points. Like, what? So for me, it was a bit jarring. So instead of a smooth ride, you're hitting a speed bump every now and again, and it kind of psychologically pulls you out of the feeling. So I couldn't enjoy the nostalgia slip, especially not after seeing TOS. But I do have the nostalgia of knowing they're the originals. So I mean that feeling is there. But yeah, the plot and the storyline, there were so many things that didn't make sense, and so many, I guess, like military stuff. I don't know if they had a lot of military people on staff anymore after Roddenberry had died, but I felt like it was just really they created problems where there shouldn't have been problems, when they could have just created instances and where they addressed people appropriately and created good storyline on that.
Well, they had to set the kind of plot up that he was useless and pointless, and then have him obviously have it come back around that he manages to get this 100-year-old freighter up and running by showing Geordi some old tricks that the new dog doesn't know.
I know, but I felt like they could have really honed in on that. They could have honed in on that, on him coming on and being so excited, but then suddenly looking at everything and realizing this is so far gone that I'm a relic. Like and you really could have started, instead of like creating these fake fights and instances of disrespect that I would consider even like on a military level disrespect that was out of line. It would have been easy for him to walk around and like you get to see Scotty more and feel with Scotty that I am useless. And that is like something I think would have really hit somebody a little bit better, instead of them like offending him and like making him feel bad because they were being rude to him. But realizing yourself that I'm no longer a part of this time. So what do I do now that I'm old and useless?
That was that scene. That was that scene on the TNG on the TOS bridge, wasn't it? Where
but I felt like they should have started with that and built up towards that, where it was just pure behavior instead of making Geordi behave out of character in an odd spike, making a ensign disrespect a dignified guest on their ship. I just thought it was a bit off.
Yeah, I don't think that was really necessary. I think the whole thing that was there, wasn't it, that he was his knowledge was too old. He was too out of date.
I would have assumed that Geordi would have been fanboying the second somebody told me, like, I'm like, the way he was acting with Leah Brahms, the second he heard Scotty was on there, I would have thought he would have been screaming and running down the hall to meet him first.
Yeah, like he took energy from a nuclear vessel and used it to recrystallize dilithium crystals in order to time travel. I mean,
yeah,
you don't. He developed transparent aluminum, didn't he?
I would have thought Geordi would have been like, forget Leah Brahms, I'm gonna see if I can marry this man. But no, it was too jarring for me to get into it. But I think because it was nostalgic and I have bites of nostalgia, that I was able to enjoy it enough not to score it under a 5, which I don't think it's so bad that it's under average. But
the thing is, you're not the generation.
Or Sean is suffering from his 5 a.m. start.
Yeah, I'm catching up.
You're not the generation that will get nostalgic from this because you didn't grow up with TOS, so you haven't got that built-in nostalgia. You know,
I think if I had nostalgia, I would have been even more so pissed off that Geordi treated. Be like, this is motherfucking Scott, y'all. Y'all better step up for somebody smack you. It's like, I would have probably been more upset. Yeah. But I don't know.
Our scores put it at joint second for the season, alongside Realm of Fear, with Time's Arrow Part 2 still being the top episode of the season so far. Next up, what do we got coming up next week?
We have Schisms.
Schisms.
Yeah. And that's the ones where it's a bit of a mystery. I don't know how much it's to say, but they all have kind of shared dreams and they kind of remember things and they're not really sleeping so well.
Yeah.
And the mystery unfolds itself as the episode goes along.
Yeah, so, be fun.
For anyone who's forgetful, I won't ruin the surprise, but I think that one's going to score quite high. It's a good sci-fi / horror
horror.
premise. So it evolves quite well. I think that one's going to score very nicely. Could be our season winner, I would say, or sorry, our current season leader after
say.
next week, because it's very it's a very decent episode.
I think they got different people doing cinematography, different showrunners. They got for the last 2 seasons of TNG. There are some different people running the show, and I think it does change a little bit in that there is more sort of mild horror like storylines rather than just the sort of standard sci-fi ones. And I like that because for me, the original TOS was always more of a kind of mild horror show than it was
a lot of the
sci-fi
time,
show. There was always like something
Yeah,
horrific going on.
they really did do the high end sci-fi premises. Not just these are like it's a drama in space. It's it's like these kind of crazy ideas, much like a Dyson sphere, the high end sci-fi concept. But as I said, quite often it had a horror twist to it.
It had always had an alien trying to take over their bodies or suck their minds out, or turn them into glue, or salt cubes, or some sort of thing. That was something horrific was going to happen to them this week. But
the salt cubes.
Yeah.
Gross.
Soylent Green of the Star Trek.
Soylent Green, yes. It is Soylent Green. Okay, well, I think now at 2 hours 45 or whatever it is, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you to Mazza McBob, Tavikins Turner, and Chief Sean for joining us this week. And thank you to everyone in live chat. If you haven't already done so this week, please remember to like the show. Thank you to the Wookmaster General, Stu Plum, Supreme Panko, Wookie, Smiler Rainbow, Mohammed, The Beard, Mr. Tavikins, Dan from Subspace Chatter, and anyone else that joined us along the way. We'll let Sean now collapse into his bed and be at one with his pillow, and
be at one with his bed.
Yes.
17 hours and a little bit over. I'm going to sleep.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Speak to you next week.
Cheers
Good
all.
night.